afternoon. How are you? Welcome to the Jason Gregor Show on Edmonton only sports station, Sports 1440, where you can get involved in the show. Text us 833-401-1440 is where you can get a hold of us on the text line. Of course, you can always email us, Gregor at sports1440.ca. We have a live, great show, unreal lineup. The con man's been working hard to have a great lineup. As always, our show is presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website that has all of the revenue and proceeds going right to the province. Everything stays right here. It's amazing. Now, hopefully you win. Everything stays in your jeans. But if you don't, it stays in the province. And we will have our Play Alberta picks coming up a little bit later on today in the show. Terry Ryan will make his co-host debut with us on Sports 1440. Today, he is going to join us every Thursday and Monday. Now, of course, there'll be a little bit of maybe juggling when he is shooting season 2 of Shoresy. Yeah, that's right. Terry Ryan, of course, former NHLer, former 8th overall pick, has got the acting world. And on Shoresy, if you watch Shoresy, man, it will, if you do watch Shoresy, trust me, we will have some references to that. Lots of get. Terry's actually, he's now officially, he's certified as an actor. He's in the union, which is a big deal. And he's got a pretty good Rolodex. So we're going to have lots of fun with guests coming on from him. Former CFL player, former NFL coach, CFL coach Henry Burris will be by. Hailey Salvian will join us. Man, there's lots going on right now in the new Professional Women's Hockey League. 6 teams, which is the perfect number, right? It makes sense. You start with 6 teams. You got 3 in Canada, 3 in the U.S. They're all fairly close proximity, similar to how the NHL started in the original 6 days. All right, it makes sense. So we'll talk to Hailey about that. Each team announcing their first 3 free agent signings. And then we'll get into kind of what's next. Is there a draft? Is it just a free-for-all? Is it complete 100% free agency? That's unreal for the players. Is it great, though, for the league if you're trying to have some semblance of competitiveness? We'll find out. The Rear Admiral, co-host on Spittin Chiclets, will join us today in the 4 o'clock hour. Spec will be by, as always. Ruben Bronte returns to the airways. He will join us today as well. Also, we'll get to our fantasy report because tonight, baby, the NFL. I'm not one who says, oh, football season begins. No, football season's been on for quite some time. I think we'd all agree with that. It's great. It's the Kansas City, the Detroit Lions. There is a lot of excitement in Detroit right now. The Lions could actually win the division. Now, I know I see some people, just like I won the division. Yeah, you're right. You know what's funny? The Detroit Lions have won their division. More recently, the Edmonton Oilers have won their division in the rest. Edmonton has the longest drought in the NHL since 1987. Detroit, I think their last division win was 1991. Also, good friend of the show, family member, should be a good fan of the show. Noah Gregor, of course, formerly with the Sharks, now with the Tom Maple, going to join us in the studio. We're going to talk a little bit about off-season training for players. What's that like? Now, the stress of not being qualified, all that sort of thing. So that's coming up in the first hour on the show. As always, we are live in the studio. Very happy to have them on board. Dave, you screw down at email.ewel.ca if you need electrical stuff. They have a brand new location just off of 184th Street, West End, and man, that place is massive. And we've been having a conversation about which workplace has the most diehard sports fans. Because I think there's a lot of them in the city. I'm sure right now you're listening, and a lot of those shops where you go in, you know what, has the same thing, and their backstop guys are all working, gals are working, and they got the sports radio all the time, and every break, when it's coffee break, There's lots of sporting discussion. Well, I put the Ewell group in the category of diehard Pack fans. I know for some of you, if you live in a place where you don't have sports, you're kinda like, "What's happening? What kind of world are you living in? How are you not a diehard? How do you not wanna eat, breathe, live, talk sports 24/7?" I get it. So, the biggest compliment you ever have is when you're able to convince some of your coworkers to become sports fans. It's amazing. So, we'll have all of that on the show today. As always, it's our first week here on Sports 1440, and, many of you I'm looking at the text line right now. Yeah, a lot of people have texted in, and they've got their name because we've saved it. And then there's a few newbies every day, which is great. I expect to get, new text messages every day. Some of you weren't, back in town, maybe you weren't listening, or maybe you didn't say anything, and you don't wanna text us. Be sure if you do, and it's your first text with your name, your nickname, your or whatever you wanna be called, just put it on there. We save it in our text system, and away you go. So it's fantastic. It's easy. Hey, Greg's outstanding lineup from JCD. You know what? Hey, I think it's important to have good guests and good content. We're gonna mix in some humor with some diehard sports talk, and I think that's what makes for great sport. Great. It's fantastic. Hey, guys, is there any chance the Oilers trade for Pesci? Realistically, what would it take? CC Savaugn a second? You think it'd get it done? Or have to be Bourgault? I don't think Carolina's trading him. They just sign him to a contract, and to a pretty good value contract. So I would be stunned if Brett Pesci is on the trade market. I think Brett Pesci, Carolina, they're a team in the East. They're similar to the Oilers. They're a top contender. No question in my mind. Now, do they lack the top end skill of the Oilers? 100%. The Oilers lack in. They don't have the same defense core as Carolina, but I think Carolina is without question a Stanley Cup contender. I don't think Brett Pesci is, going to be going anywhere. Obviously, you'd want him, but I don't. Boys, Rear Admiral, unreal, great call. Well, that's our executive producer, Brad. Old Slate, you know what? He's got a big Rolodex for a young dude, and he's we're gonna have lots of, awesome guests, on Sports 1440, and, Brad and Connor and Brad, kinda like a combination, but Brad's kind of like our executive producer, and he's one of those guys who breathes, lives sports all we love it, which is fantastic. So, also say hello again to you watching online on our YouTube channel, Oilers Nation. We've gained a lot of subscribers. Check it out, watch the show. You can see how we look. Oh, don't wanna have too low cut of a T-shirt on. So, if you wanna see some of our guests, you can, because, all of our guests either live in studio or if they join us, 95% of them, you'll be able to see their okay? So, we added addition to the show we didn't have before, and I'm very much excited about it. It just adds new dimension. Of course, there's the chat line you can get involved in there as well. So we say hello to everybody who is watching online. I like it. Guys, is Bronte still driving the Biscayne in the North Combine? Oh, no. Remember that lemon that died on the yellow hill? No, sorry, the white one. Yes. We'll have to ask Rubes if he's got another class vehicle. I like it. Oh, cool. Now, coming up on the show today. Hey, great. So great to hear your voice on the radio. Have you had anyone donate order tickets? I have the September 27th game to give away. It's only preseason, but I have other plans. Can't make it. Matt from Duke. Matty, yes, send them via email to Connor at sports1440.ca. Connor, Connor, 2 O's, 2 N's. Okay. And you transfer the send them, and we'll figure out how to do it. Connor at sports1440.ca, and then you can pass them on. That's the easiest way to do it. We always like to have the chance to go to a game. Obviously, if we say, "Hey, I'm doing it this year," well, everybody there is yet to be a game. It's awesome. Hey, Gregs, what are your thoughts on esports? From hey, you know what? It is a massive growing market. I remember we had a whole week in August a few years ago talking about esports. It's growing. There's no question about that it's growing. And so Where is it going to go to? Like, I don't think it's going away. I'll say that. All of a sudden, you see less people playing esports, right? Like they had a massive surge, and now it's leveled off, very consistent. Right? Like those gamers, you're good at gaming. Guess what? Now you can literally make a career out of it. So I don't have an issue with it whatsoever. I'm kind of jealous there wasn't a Galaga League when I was a kid. That's the only one I probably could have had a chance at. Like I sucked at track and field on the video game, right? But Galaga, that was the one. Now it's pretty simple. Today's games are much more advanced, right? Like my son, we had a deal. He'll get a PS5 when he turns 10, right? So we've got actually got a friend give us a PS3 that he's been using, which is fine. He has limited time on video games anyway, but he's been using that for a while, and it's fun. It's good, but he's patiently waiting for the time that he can get his PS5 right after his birthday when he turns 10. So, you know what? We'll have the odd esport guest on the show. Like, I don't know. More so the question is for the audience. How many people are watching esport? That would be my question. I know there's lots of people who game and play games, but how many of you go and watch esport events? I've never been to one. I probably should go to one. I'd like to see. Hey, guys, who do you think gets the PTO spot? Gagne or Sutter? Honestly, man, that's a great question. I can't even say with any sort of confidence who I think is going to get that. We got to see. Who knows? It'll all depend on, does that earn themselves a contract? Like Edmonton, let's be real here. They're going to have a 21-man roster to start. I think they got 11 forwards locked in, 7 defensemen, and 2 goalies. So that leaves 1 roster spot to start. Now, some of these guys might be willing to sign a 2-way start in the American League, because remember, Clean Costin started in the American League last year. Matthias Janmark started in the American League last year. Both of them were regulars in the playoffs. Both of them were regulars for lots of the regular season. So you're going to need some depth at some point. There's no question, right? Like the Oilers, now they didn't have any of their superstars get banged up. But, Evander Kane's a pretty big player. He missed half the season. He played 41 games, right? Fogle was out. McLeod was out. Lots of other guys were banged up. So, injuries are they're part of the NHL. There's no way to avoid it. So it is going to, it's going to happen for sure. Just want to say, boys, I'm so happy you're back on the air from Honest Hansel. Honest Hansel's a good moniker. I like it. Well, trust me, I'm just as happy as you are that we're back on the air. It's something that I felt Edmonton and all the surrounding area of sports fans in Northern Alberta, they love sports talk radio. They love talking sports. They like hearing stories. They like debating about it. And here's the great part. Like this week is nice because everybody's being friendly. But I know once the season begins, that's when the real strong opinions come out, and then the debates start, which is going to be fantastic. So. Hey, guys, my kids are huge esport fans. I've watched a few of them. It's pretty entertaining from Big Dan. Yeah, well, 100%, Dan. I can see it. That's right up their alley. Why wouldn't it be? So, have you ever been to a live event? Because I've seen videos of it. It looks pretty entertaining. Like people there are having fun. No different. Like I'm not one who wants. Oh, geez, because I don't like esports. That means it's not worth it. Not at all. There's lots of things that I don't go to the opera. I highly respect the opera. It's just not my thing. Right? It's hard to have everything as your thing. If you're that person who has everything as your thing, good for you. The Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca, live on Sports 1440, also streaming on YouTube, the Oilers Nation channel. Check it out on video. Coming up next, gentleman who is going to the 6. Try to crack the line. Talk about that next. We continue on Thursday afternoon. It is the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca. Thanks for listening, for streaming us, for tuning in. If you're watching on Oilers Nation YouTube, we always appreciate it. Now, let's get to our big guest of the day, brought to you by Silent Rides Charter Company, one of Alberta's premier bus charter companies with state-of-the-art motor coaches that safely take you to your next destination. Visit silentrides.ca. And I'm not sure if our next guest in studio, I don't think he's going to be taking the coach to Toronto, but Noah Gregor joins us. Noah, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really good. Congrats, by the way. This is great. I'm fired up that you guys are back on it.
You know what? It was really good because you and, of course, your brother, Liam, you guys are, early 20s. I guess Liam's maybe late 20s now, almost 27. Yeah. But and you guys would tell me how, because I had some people like, sports radio isn't for younger people. And you're like, no, all of our buddies are dying for it. So, no, it was, that was another one of the reasons where I was like, yeah, we got to get this back up. So we're happy that we're here and it's good timing. Let's go through kind of the summer for you. The first time you had the opportunity to go, you had arbitration rights, and so now you get qualified. That's the first time the Sharks elected not to qualify you. Was that a shock? How'd you deal with that, you and your agent?
Yeah, it was a bit of a shock. Basically, up until really 2 days before the qualifying date, I was under the impression that I was going to get qualified. So it was a little shocking that that close to the date they decided and told me that I wasn't going to be qualified. It was disappointing at first. Obviously, I have a lot of close friends and enjoyed my time at San Jose. But that's part of the business, and players move all the time. So I just kind of started talking with my agent and trying to decide what the best next move was. And obviously that's free agency day, and that's the whole thing that I haven't dealt with yet. So it was an interesting summer, and a difficult summer. I think a lot of guys in my position kind of dealt with the same thing of not a lot of offers out there really. A lot of guys signing 1 or 2 year deals, and a lot of guys on PTOs this coming season. So it was different, but. Things have ended up. I'm excited for camp.
Outwardly, I don't know, maybe you got it from your mother's side, but you seem to be a little bit more patient than me and my brother, your dad. And so, but did this test your patience? Was it hard at times not to be like, what the bleep's going on?
Yeah, it definitely was tough at times. I would agree. Probably didn't get that patience from my dad or yourself. So I'll give my mom credit to that. But there's really not much you can do. I have a lot of trust in my agent, and I have a lot of confidence in myself that wherever I end up on whatever contract or tryout that ended up happening, I'm going to go to a team and make an impression and make that team. So that's the belief in myself. So just excited for camp.
Gregor joins us, going to Toronto. I don't know, like obviously you've always been motivated, but is there like a chip on your shoulder now to show a lot of people that said, hey, you know what? I think I'm more valuable than how the market viewed me?
Yeah, I think so. I'm confident in myself, and I thought I was deserving of a contract right away with any team really. But that's just not how it always goes in hockey. So you just have to keep that confidence and that mindset that you're an NHL player. I believe in a full-time NHL player to help the team win, and that's what I'm going to try and do at camp here in Toronto. That I can be an important part of their team and hopefully crack the opening night roster.
So this summer, the evolution of hockey players, and obviously I've seen it up close, knowing you your whole life, and I've seen the growth and the maturity and the strength that you've added on, and just like you're 200 pounds now, right? Like how, and you've obviously been a very strong skater the whole time, but I know you hired a skills and skating coach this summer for you in Daryl Marchuk. How did that go? And how much more confidence do you have? And what have you learned about yourself that you've improved as a player this summer?
Yeah, I hired Daryl this summer. I've been doing a ton of one-on-one stuff. Also went with a new off-ice trainer in Barry Butt. So kind of went into the summer with a whole different whole different plan than in the past. Just try to switch things up. But on ice, we're just kind of trying to tweak some things. I've always been a strong straight line skater, and that's something that you don't want to tweak too much. It's already there, so it's more of the lateral things and being able to come out of tight turns and keep momentum and gain momentum. I think that was one thing that we've worked on a ton. Is when I was coming out of turns, I was kind of getting back on my heels, and that just isn't the most efficient way to skate, obviously. So kind of just getting myself more on the front quarter of my blade and trying to use my strength and my legs to be a more efficient skater.
Noah Gregor joins us from the Toronto Maple Leafs, and it's interesting, like these type of things 15, 20 years ago, very few people were even talking about, right? Like guys were just good skaters and there wasn't so much focus on edge. And now we're talking about trying to be on the front quarter of your edge. Now, was it a challenge? As you mentioned, you've always been a good skater. Like was Bambi might be an exaggeration here, but was there some learning curves for you when you're trying to make those skating changes?
Yeah, 100%. I haven't done a ton of just straight power skating, and that's not all we did, but definitely there's some of that in these sessions. And the first 2-3 skates, I was struggling with a lot of things, and it can get frustrating for sure. I know Daryl had to tell me, just stay with it. You're getting frustrated over here. Just do your best. It's going to come. And I've definitely seen the progression over the summer that I've improved, and I believe I'm a better skater than I was.
Now, is that something that you'll continue to do during the season, or is this more of just an off-season training stuff?
Yeah, I hope so. I don't know exactly what the Leafs have skating wise and skills wise. I believe they're pretty solid with their in season skills. I know I talked to Sheldon Keefe a little bit, and he says they're pretty good with keeping on that kind of thing. But I don't know for sure yet who's in charge of it.
When you look at that roster in Toronto, and I've heard some rumblings that they might run with Tavares, Nylander, and Matthews as their top 3 centers, which then means you need 6 wingers to run with that. And you look at that lineup, you feel pretty confident that you can earn yourself a spot there.
Yeah, I wouldn't have chosen Toronto if I didn't think I had a really solid shot at cracking the roster. If they do decide to go with Tavares, Matthews, and Nylander, that obviously would be a pretty solid 3 centers, and then camp as well. I don't know what they're going to do, no idea, but I think I can bring an element of speed and tenacity that they might be missing kind of in their third or fourth line. And I'm excited to get down there and show them what I can do.
Now, we got a few texts coming in. People wondering why you didn't sign with Edmonton. You seem to love to play there because all you do is score against the Oilers. As a kid who grew up in Beaumont, obviously you grew up an Oilers fan. Was there extra juice for you when you played at home?
Yeah, I love playing here, and it just so happens that I think 3 times now I've been able to score at home. I've also done well in Calgary as well, so it's something about the Alberta air that helps me play well. And it's always exciting to see family and friends at the game, and being able to go and see them after the game. That everyone's all fired up, so it's always fun coming home.
Well, I can tell you, I hadn't cheered at a hockey game for many years because of obviously it's my job, and but I did sit in the crowd for the game that you scored twice. And my wife looked at me, she goes, "I don't think I've ever seen you cheer at a game, but family first." And that was a real thrill for me and my son and my wife. Of course, obviously a bigger thrill for you, I would think, and your buddies. But it is. Is there added pressure at all when you come home, or is it just more excitement when you play in front of family and friends?
There's definitely some nerves. It usually is just the build up, and then in warm up when I'm really seeing everyone. Most of my family for sure is coming down to the glass in warm ups, and I'll see my grandparents and your mom, grandma. So it's pretty cool to see that. The nerves are still there, kind of just up until game time. Then it's just a regular game. You can kind of put that behind you. You don't really look into the crowd anymore. You're not thinking about it as much, and you can just go and play.
Noah Gregor joins us from the Toronto Maple Leafs. A different summer for you as well. You had a few of your buddies, one of your best friends. You grew up with your roommate in Moose Jaw, Brett Howden. I know you guys are super tight. He wins a cup with Vegas. And did you go to his cup date?
Yeah, I did.
How was that?
It was awesome. We were all at Tanner Janot's wedding on the Friday, I believe, and then me and my buddy Jaden flew out to Winnipeg the next day, and were able to make it to his cup party on the Sunday. So, it was a big weekend, but, he comes from a small town, really small town in Oakbank, and the community really showed up for him. It was cool to see him with the cup and just the joy that he had, and it was really awesome to see him go through that with his family and his newborn kid as well was pretty cool to see.
So does that just motivate you even more? And are you a superstitious guy? Did you touch the cup? How'd it work?
No, I did not touch the cup. No, there's no chance I was touching the cup, but it definitely gives you motivation. I watched the finals and got to see him raise the cup for the first time, and that it was so special to see him do that. Just being such close friends and growing up together, it was really cool to see, and hopefully one day I'll be able to do that.
So Tanner, of course, is now a member of Tampa Bay, one of Toronto's biggest rivals. He's a huge man. He's like 220.
Yeah.
When you play against one of your good buddies, like, are you guys chirping each other, or do you stay away from Jeannot? How does it work?
A little bit of chirps here and there. I definitely try and stay away from Jeannot a little bit. I don't think he, minds running into me and trying to throw me down. That's his game. He has to do it. So, if he catches you, it's going to be bad. So, I'll try and stay out of his way for sure. It's actually funny when me and Howdy played against each other in Vegas. I kind of caught someone sort of from behind me. He came up to me, gave me a shot. We were kind of going back and forth. He actually caught me like right in the cheek. I think my visor or something caught me. I was a little scraped up after. So that was funny that we had a bit of a run in Vegas, but nothing came of it.
So what would your mom say if you and Howdy dropped the mitts?
She would not be pleased, I don't think. She doesn't like it anytime I fight, but if I ended up ever fighting Brett or really any of my buddies across the league, she would not be thrilled.
No. How has it gotten easier? Like, obviously your dad played minor pro, so I think he kind of understands it, but your mom was never really grew up around hockey. She's not really a big sports fan. How's her evolution of a hockey mom been?
It's been great. I definitely think she's learned a lot about the business side of it, especially this summer, just with my situation. She's been great though. She's really supportive. I've noticed this summer for sure. She's checking in a lot and asking me if I'm talking to my agent, if I'm talking to teams, if I'm doing the right thing. So she's all in, and it's great to see her being a little more involved and interested in kind of like that the hockey away from the rink and the business side of it. It's cool.
How was the last few years in San Jose? You're a young guy. The goal is just to get in the NHL, and you just want to establish yourself as an NHL player. But the Sharks really weren't that competitive, out of it kind of by December the last few years. How challenging is it? Like, I know at the time guys like, oh yeah, do your best, and I get you do, but how mentally challenging is it when you're on a team that really isn't that competitive?
Yeah, it definitely starts to wear on you a little bit. My 4 years there, parts of 4 years, we were never in contention, and by about game 60, I would say it starts to get into kind of the dog days of the season where guys are just sort of getting through games, and you really have to put yourself in that mental space that, hey, this is a job that's paying you a lot of money. People are coming out to watch you and also spending a lot of money to see you play, and they're excited and they want your best every night. So you have to remember that there's a lot to it. It's a job, and you have to go out and perform every night. That at times can be difficult with the way the seasons have gone in San Jose, but there's always something to play for. You're playing for your next contract. You're playing for other teams that are watching you to get a good look at you, and you can try to make an impression on other teams as well. So there's always something to play for.
We're going to take a break. We'll come back. We're going to talk about Erik Karlsson, Joe Thornton, who was kind of like your adopted big brother when you were a rookie in San Jose, and we'll hear for some Joe Thornton stories next. Jason Gregor, Noah Gregor here live on Sports 1440. It's the Gregor Show presented by PlayAlberta.ca. minute. You come in as a young guy, you go into San Jose, and there's Joe Thornton, who's going to be a future Hall of Famer. Patrick Marleau, probably maybe a decent chance to be one. Erik Karlsson just had one of the greatest seasons ever. Like you've kind of been lucky in that sense. The team hasn't been great, but you've played with some really good individuals. Tell me about kind of your introduction to Joe Thornton, the bearded wonder. You even had Brent Burns, another classic. But like I've heard so many stories about Joe and how he really just connects with all the young guys.
Yeah, no, Jumbo's great for myself and everyone really in the locker room. His presence is, he's got a huge presence in the room. He's a huge man. I think that was the first thing I realized when I saw him. He's 6'4", probably on the taller side of 6'4". He's huge, and he's always laughing, yelling. Him and Burns, he would be screaming all the time. They were the center of attention. But then when the game starts, Jumbo's probably the most intense and hard hockey player that I've got to see. Even at I think he was 40 or 41 when I first played with him. Yeah. So he still had that tenacity and that edge, and he was great for myself. I really enjoyed my time with him.
Did you ever bring up the fact that he was drafted first overall before you were even born?
I don't know if I ever mentioned that. I don't know if he'd love it, but that's pretty crazy to think about. Him and Marleau both.
Oh yeah.
Could technically be my dad, and it wouldn't have been like that crazy of a thing. So it's weird that those two were kind of my first big veterans in the league. It's pretty cool to see that.
And didn't Joe, was it your rookie year, he's inviting you over to his house all the time just to hang out?
Yeah, no, he was great for myself. He was really close with another young guy on the team, Mario Ferraro. We kind of came up in the same path, and him and Mario were really close, and then me and Mario were really close with each other, and we would head over to Jumbo's house every now and then and just hang out. So I was really appreciative of that to have two young guys come in and make them feel welcome and included in their house, and that makes going to the rink easier as well when you have a veteran guy kind of on your side and looking out for you.
Noah Gregor joins us, formerly the Sharks, now with the Maple Leafs. Erik Karlsson last year had one of the greatest seasons a defenseman's ever had in NHL history. And when you came in, Karlsson was there, but he was playing banged up from what I understood. Obviously, he got healthy. As a teammate and what you see, what wowed you the most about Karlsson last year once you saw him healthy?
It's hard to pinpoint one thing.
Many things.
His ability to single-handedly break out the puck almost any shift he wants is crazy to see. He can just lead the rush and 2-3 strides, he's breaking away from the forechecker and making an outlet pass. The way he can move across the line is great. I've seen countless times this year where he's went under a stick, back under a stick, around a guy, right at the blue line when there's not many guys that do that. I think his confidence level is really, I think, his biggest attribute. He's never afraid to make a play. He trusts his ability, and I think that's why he's able to make those plays. His confidence is always there, and it was unbelievable to watch this year.
When you look at and you talk about a player and you just see how important confidence is, as a young guy, do you look and say because it's hard. Lots of young players come in the game and they're just you don't want to make a mistake because geez, if I make a mistake, coach is probably more likely to sit me than the 10-year veteran. That's just kind of how it is. But when do you find that transition to just be well, I can't be afraid to make a mistake. I got to be confident to make a play. How do you balance that?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a fine line. I think you have to also have that honest self-evaluation and know the type of player you are. Obviously, I'm not going to be out there trying to dangle through a guy 3 times. I'm not Erik Karlsson or a top line forward that has that ability to do it. But I trust in my own abilities that I can make a play and try and take a guy one-on-one maybe one time, not 3 like he can. So yeah, you can definitely learn from that, and just even if you do mess up, Carl's out there the next shift trying the exact same play. He knows that 9 times out of 10 that play's going to work. So that's something I can definitely learn from. Not getting down on yourself. If you do make a mistake, just go out there and trust your ability, and that's going to help you gain confidence and be a better player.
Where do you feel you are better heading into this training camp as a player than you have been before?
You know what? I think that I've really learned how to just play in the NHL and be a hard-nosed guy, and I think I've got a lot better at winning battles in the NHL. I think, adding some size this summer as well is going to help me with that. Coming in the league, I think that's one of the hardest things to learn is how to be really hard on your stick and win battles. Guys are so strong in the NHL. So I think that's one thing that, I'm confident in coming into training camp is I'm going to be able to play a hard two-way game and be able to win my battles and help the team out that way.
So how do you learn to be better at battling? What do you do?
I think it's just a lot of it is just going through it and learn. You can learn from other guys as well. To see little tendencies they use. I watch Couture a lot. He's got one of the better sticks in the league, I think. Nick Bonino as well are two guys that use their stick really well. They're not huge, checkers. They use their stick super well, and they're two guys that I've watched and picked up a few things on just how to stick lift the guy or put my body in a position to keep the puck away. And that's two things that I've learned for sure.
You can score from distance. Not a lot of guys that can beat goalies clean from 25 plus feet. You got a lot of goals from there. Probably more goals from there than you do in tight. How do you feel, or did you work on scoring more from closer distance?
Yeah, getting into that middle ice is definitely something that I know I have to improve on and get better at, and that's where the majority of goals are scored. There's a lot of things that I've worked on with there that should help me in that aspect. Just some in tight drills, deflections, and picking up pucks off of different areas in your feet, and being able to make a quick stick handle and shot. So that that has been coming along pretty well for me, I think, and hopefully that will translate to more goals.
Do you shoot pucks every day? What's because you got a pretty good shot. How'd you get a good shot?
You know what? Growing up, I shot a ton of pucks. We would have a lot of street hockey played, and just playing a lot of hockey, I think, helped myself. Now, as I got older, I haven't shot as many pucks as I probably should. This summer was nice. So at my gym, we had a net and a big space that you were able to shoot pucks at. So I definitely did more of that this summer than I have in the past. And I think having a good shot, you can definitely improve on it. But some guys are just have that in them and are able to shoot it well. So yeah, I don't know.
Pat in the Park is wondering, Lane Peterson, of course, you played with him. What can Oilers fans expect? What kind of player is he?
He's he's a hard-nosed player. I think he's gotten better at using his size. He's a bigger guy. He skates well. I think he's going to come in and push the pace and be physical. I also think he has a really good skill set. You watch him in little 3-on-3 games or games after practice where he really shows off his hands and his ability to tight turn. He's really good at that, and I think he's going to come into Edmonton and do a good job. He's a great player, a better person. I've talked to him actually pretty recently here. He's excited to get into town and get going here with the Oilers.
Now you're going to Toronto. You're a huge sports fan. So Raptors or Jays, which one do you want to see? Or obviously, I'm assuming you're going to go see both. But is there one team you root more for?
Right now, obviously the Jays just because they're playing. I mean, I haven't kept too many tabs on the Raptors as of late, but I'm definitely a big Raptors fan, and I'll be going to a game for sure. But I'd say right now it's the Jays, and hopefully when I get down there, I'll be able to catch a game.
Now, when you were in San Jose, did you go to Warriors games? Did you see Steph Curry live?
Yes, I watched the Warriors game, but I don't think Curry was playing. No, he was not playing. Yeah, he wasn't playing the game I watched. I only went to one, but it was a great game. It was a close game. They were playing the Pistons, and they were down 2 with 2 seconds left. Clay hit a deep 2 to tie it with 0.3 seconds left. Pistons inbound the ball, drained a full court shot to win the game. It was crazy. But I've only been to one game.
NBA game. Now, did you go to any 49ers games?
No, never went to a 49ers game.
Have you been in an NFL game?
No.
What?
Never been.
Jeez.
I'm not the biggest football guy anyway.
Not a big football. But what about Toronto and Buffalo, man? If you ever had a Sunday off to go to Buffalo, just to see the spectacle of Bills Mafia, that in itself would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be that'd for sure be a good time, and go down a little early, do the Buffalo tailgate. I'd be down for that for sure, but I have yet to get to an NFL game.
Now, have you ever taken batting practice?
No, not like with a pro team or anything. No.
No. Because did you play? You played a little bit of ball, right?
Yeah. I played growing up till I was like 14, and then me and
Did you
my
and your brother? You
brother-
guys played? Were you playing senior?
Yeah,
was
we
it-
played some senior ball.
Yeah.
I played when I was like, that was probably like 5 years ago now. But Liam played for 3 or 4 years for the Armina Royals. So
the
shout out to them.
Armina Royals.
Yeah, shout out the Armina Royals.
Armina, yeah, nice. Because like hitting a, you get in batting practice and hitting a dinger is like there's certain like being able to dunk, hitting a dinger. And I think for people going bar down, if you're not a hockey player, like there's just certain things in other sports. You're like, that's what I'd like to do. Do you think you could go yard in batting practice?
I was never a big power hitter. I was more of a contact hitter. So I don't think it would take me a bit for sure. I'd have to practice, but I think eventually I'd be able to get one out. But if I just went out tomorrow and went and took batting practice, I wouldn't have too much money on myself to go yard.
No, but you'd hit it out of the infield better than Struddy?
I've never seen Struddy, but I would imagine I'd be able to hit it a little better.
Well, dude, it'd be hard to hit it worse. I'll tell you right now. Struddy got booed in a charity event because he was so bad. He couldn't get out of the infield.
I've had that stuff.
And I'm not even making that up. That's still one of my favorite stories of all time. Just because as he's walking back from the batter's box, we're like, God, they're booing.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, that is a tough one. One last. So you get into to Toronto. One of your former teammates, Dylan Gambrell, that's who you're going to live with to start. How important is it? Like this will be now because you went into San Jose, didn't know anybody. Is it easier? How important is it to get to know guys quickly? Do you find and to make it more comfortable for you as a player?
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the things that I've yet to do in a while is go into a new team and a bunch of new players that I haven't met yet. I know Gambrell and Martin Jones a little bit. He's also there re-signed. So I'll know 2 guys going in, but other than that, I'm going to have to maybe put myself out there a little more than I'm used to and start to get to know the guys. But just from talking to a few guys, around that have played in Toronto, I've heard it's a great group there, and they like to have fun, and they're a close-knit group. So I'm excited to get down there.
Well, I know obviously we're excited for you. Mostly excited because the games will start at 5 our time rather than 8:30. San Jose, like the worst home start time in the league, 7:30 weekdays. Like it's brutal.
Yeah, the players I don't think enjoy the 7:30 starts either.
No.
So it's not just the fans.
Yeah, and that's fair. Like I was kind of curious why they still do it. I don't know. Like is traffic that bad that you have to start that late?
I have yet to get a solid explanation of why we're the only team, or used to be the only team that played at 7:30 consistently at home. It's weird. I don't know exactly why they do it, but that's the way they do it.
Yeah, it is very weird. Well, Noah, thanks so much for joining us, man. I think this is the third diff because we had it at the 1260 studio. Then you were at the Velvet Dungeon once, and now you're at the new Sports 1440 studio. So one of the few guests has been at all 3 places.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, no, this is awesome. I'm pumped up for you guys. This has been good.
Awesome. Thanks. That's Noah Gregor from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Let's get to 1440 Sports Update, brought to you by BIE Engineering, your structural engineering specialist. Whether you're in the process of a rental or building your dream home, BIE can help you out. Go to BIEENG.com. Not bad. How are you? Thanks for having me. I suppose. Yeah, I can't hear you. I can see you. You're a beautiful mug. I just can't hear anything. I did. I use this a lot. I had it going today. I did my own pod. I guested on one, and I don't usually run into this problem, so I'm not sure. Well, we've shot season 2, and that'll be out on September 27th here in Canada and on Crave, and it'll be out October 29th in the United States on Hulu. And then, a little bit later, we're hoping to shoot season 3. I mean, everything seems positive right now, but I'm not in the position to make any formal claim. Pitch always falls in love. Yeah, I can say that. All I can really say is that if you liked season 1, I think you'd like season 2. From a perspective of filming, it was a lot different because I'm a Letterkenny fan. So the first season, I was kind of trying to do Letterkenny. I didn't know what the vision was for the show until I saw it. I mean, we're in the scenes, but we weren't in all of them. So the post-production really made a difference. And now doing season 2, we kind of knew what was coming, and we become buddies like a hockey team. Most of us are hockey players. And even those that weren't, it's a family, and we stay close to each other. It's a little bit different unlike any other film set I've been on. So, I mean, the tone was slightly different. I think you will see it. We're probably a little bit more comfortable with each other. I'm not at liberty to give away many plot points, but the Bulldogs make it interesting, and maybe there is someone, a lady that catches Hitch's eye. Maybe there is. Yeah. Interesting question. I always wanted to be involved in the arts. I think hockey, not only was it time though, when I say I chose hockey, it wasn't just time, it was a little embarrassing. Honestly, growing up in Mount Pearl at that time, not that Mount Pearl was any different than a lot of places, but if I told my buddies on the hockey team that I wanted to go act in a Shakespeare play, I think anything would have happened from what the hell to a punch in the face. So I never really, and I used to write poems. It's the same thing. What am I going to read? My defenseman of poetry, poetry. So it's self-created nonetheless. So I was always involved. Like I was in creative writing. One day a week, actually, JG, once a week. I used to go to a special school. I used to take these standardized tests, and if you excelled in any of them, like top 1 or 2%, you got the option to go to a school. For me, it wasn't math or anything. Like I had to take those courses in there, but it's not like I was brilliant. There was people in there that were numbers people that were actually brilliant, science, math. Me, I was just a little bit creative, and I'm an only child, so I was always imagining things. My dad had played pro hockey, which seemed unheard of here. Even as I was coming up, it just no one was doing it. Newfoundland had a bit of a defeatist attitude, so I really, and just the globalization of the internet and everything helped that. And now I think it's a little bit different. But just from being a hockey player to being a student to being
a writer, I just thought none of it was possible. So I had these
big dreams, you know, and
I'm not sure what happened. No, now I. Okay. Can you hear me now? No, but I know, but I can't hear you. I can only hear you through. So either I do this or I just keep talking. Yeah, we'll figure it out at the break. I'm sure I will. This, once in a blue moon it happens. So that was it. And then of course when I went to Quesnel to play junior as a 14-year-old, I'm not going to be. That was Milltown, real tough. And I remember more than anything that year, just the creative stuff was on a back burner, and I was like, okay, how am I going to deal with this? I ended up with 222 minutes as a 14-year-old. I'll never forget that. And not that it was all about blood, guts, and violence or anything. It was a tougher place. There wasn't much in creative arts in Quesnel. Loved the people. But for me, whereas in St. John's, you wouldn't think, but it really is overrepresented. The cast of this hour is 22 minutes, are all from here. There's, Great Big Sea, the Irish descendants. There's all kind of, even in films, Republic of Doyle, you got Codco, and which led to Kids in the Hall back in the day. So Atlantic Canada, St. John's, there was always that. A lot of my friends now are into the arts, Alan Doyle, Alan Hawko, I can go down the list. So for me, I guess it's something I always wanted to do. I didn't really, while I was playing hockey, especially after when I got hurt and I realized I wasn't getting back to the NHL, I used to journal, right? So not a diary, not every single day. If something interesting happened, I remember like my first game in Seattle, or why it was packed and the music was loud and it was Brendan Witt. And I just remember things that stood out to me, writing them down. I might come back to this someday. And then when I found out, I'm not getting back up, I took advantage of it, and I used to take like time each week, specific time to finish my writings, which would end up being a couple books, and to be honest with you, I know it's a long way around your question, but when the book came out in 2015, I was working on a film set. Now, my buddy Alan Hawko was the lead actor and writer for Republic of Doyle, was a hit Canadian TV show for 5 or 6 years. And, I just didn't have a job, and I needed to support people. So I started working on set. From there, I talked my way into some stunts. And then, we were lucky enough to have Jason Momoa here. The same group put out the show Frontier, right? So I just happened to talk to Momoa, who had read my book. I taught him to play hockey. He played roller hockey. He never skated before. So every Sunday, I'd take him up on the ice. He loved my book. Yeah, well, the very first scene in Frontier, it's on Netflix, is me begging for my life. That was my first real role that I had to say anything. Momoa helped me out get it. Yeah, but I was teaching him to play hockey. Then he took me to Europe for 3 months. He put me in a movie called Braven, and the entire third season of Frontier was shot in castles in northern England and Scotland. And he had me in there. He said, you can be my personal assistant for 3 months, and I'll put you into some stunts and help you on your way. And he did. Okay, here we go.
always has a orientation for rookies, right? To that they can go through these kind of figuring out what you need to do to if you're going to make the team, kind of just what happens if you're a regular NHL player. They do this all the time for rookies like a Connor Bedard, but also guys like a Raphael Lavoie, who's never really been someone that you consider a chance to make the team. Well, now he does. So they send him in for that. And, and it works out pretty well. I've talked to players before. They just learn a lot about what to expect, makes you a little bit more comfortable. So that's why he wasn't on the ice today. He'll be back with the group in the future. Kane and Nurse also not on the ice today. Doesn't mean anything. Not everybody's going to skate every day in the captain skates. I will say this. Connor Brown, for Oilers fans, he's eerily similar in his relentless style of play to Zach Hyman. Now, I'm not saying he's going to score as many goals as Zach Hyman, right? He's not going to be on the first unit power play, so it's probably going to be hard to score as many goals as Hyman. But when you watch his style of play, and I look at Brown, and I wonder and say, hey, if you're Jay Woodcroft, do you want Brown on one line and Hyman on the other, just because of their styles of play? We'll see. TR is back with us. Terry, so I want to ask you this as a guy who's played, right? And when you look at Hyman and Brown, similar styles, and you got McDavid and Draisaitl, you got Kane, and you got Nugent Hopkins. If you're coaching, would you just put Brown and Hyman on separate lines because it's good to have kind of that relentless workhorse on each line?
I think that's my natural instinct. That's what I would do at first. The Oilers are so they're intriguing. They're an intriguing team. If I'm not mistaken, most spots are taken, right? I mean, Gagne's there.
Yeah.
Sutter's there. How many spots are out there? One or two?
One, really. I think like one 12 forward spot. That's it.
And is it assumed Peterson is on the team?
No, not at all. No, he's battling with Sutter and Gagne.
But he's signed on a
one-way, right?
Yes. League minimum.
Okay,
so they could send guys to the minors. Doesn't count against cap.
But I find it
I find them intriguing, right down to, you get the best two players, if you want to say that, McDavid and Draisaitl, obviously.
And, sometimes they
sometimes they don't. The obvious combinations that I would think work
over the years
haven't.
So
I would think two right-hand shot
similar players. I would probably
put on different lines. And Hyman, I think, has earned
a spot
a bit higher right now. I know Brown played with McDavid and played with a few players in the past.
I respect
his talent, but I would think he's coming in, on the outside looking in when it comes to the first line, second line.
All right. Okay. Now let's get to the NFL report brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling. Home with the no payments, no interest for 1 year on your furnace or your AC unit. Check it out at legacyheating.ca. We're very excited to have a Grey Cup champion. Also, of course, has been in the NFL, was with Jacksonville. Now is a free agent. Henry Burris joins us right now. Henry, how are you, my man?
Jace, what's going on, big man? How are you?
I'm good. This is, of course, Terry Ryan, former NHLer. He's our co-host. And I don't know if you've ever seen the TV show Shoresy, big star in Shoresy. So you might have to check it out.
Terry, how are you?
Great to meet you. I never thought this moment would come, but here it is.
Yeah, so there you go. I like it. Now, Henry, first of all, let's kind of give us an update on where you're at and what's kind of ahead for you.
Well, actually, I've been talking with a number of not only NFL teams, but also collegiate. I've talked with some XFL teams and USFL teams about, coaching opportunities. The thing for me this year that's been different than in the past is, of course, being in Jacksonville, working with Trevor as an assistant quarterback coach last year, still doing the quality control duties, and also with Chicago the 2 years prior to that. This year, my oldest, Armand, is a senior in high school. He's in grade 12. And I've been helping him out with his college process right now, helping develop him, get him ready so he can put his best foot forward. And he's done just that. But I've had some offers come across the table, and I'm getting to the point where probably here within the next couple of weeks, you'll hear me making a decision as far as which direction I'm going to go. But again, it's going to be one, rest assured you, that's going to include me being, having the opportunity to take that next step and actually, coach my own quarterbacks and help develop some young men, so therefore they might, have a brighter future and be the best that they can be, and I can, be that resource for them to help make them, better young signal callers.
You were in Jacksonville. You saw Trevor Lawrence up close and personal for the last bit. So I think you're the perfect guy to have on. There's so much excitement right now. A lot of people think this offense in Jacksonville is going to take off. You've seen Trevor Lawrence up close and personal. You played the position, so you know how difficult it can be to play that position, right? Both in the NFL and the CFL. So what do you see in Trevor Lawrence? And like, I don't want to say compare him to this guy because I think that's unfair, but are you expecting a breakout season for him this year?
Oh, 1000%. I mean, when you look at Trevor, I mean, you think instantly he's a unicorn. I mean, you don't find guys with that stature physically that has not only the mental capability, but also the leadership abilities is what a guy like him has. Because trust me, guys, when you first initially see Trevor, you see those beautiful long blonde locks, and you're thinking, man, this guy has Fabio written all over him. He could be walking down runways and wearing underwear and making millions of dollars. But the thing is, here's a guy like Trevor who's out there, leading not only high school teams to state championships, but also he led Clemson to a national championship. And each and every year they were competing, with the likes of the Joe Burrows and the Jamar Chases and the Justin Jeffersons playing against them in the Sugar Bowl. So Trevor's a guy who's used to winning. He's been successful wherever he's been, and he's also been a consummate leader. But of course, coming off that first year being with Urban Meyer and company, he was really distraught after that. I mean, he was really shell shocked because Urban Meyer was a guy he really looked up to. But Doug Peterson last year empowered him, put the pieces around him to help make his job that much easier, bringing in Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. But now, man, they went out and got Calvin Ridley. You've got Evan Ingram. And, of course, you got Travis Etienne in the backfield. This guy is surrounded by nothing but talent. So right now his job is just to go out and distribute the ball and honestly just guide this machine that they've put together. And right now, to make the second round last season and unfortunately lose to the guy who nobody could beat in Patrick Mahomes, puts Jackson right in the front seat to ascend to take that next step, which they'll play, next week they'll play Kansas City down in Jacksonville. So that'll be a game that they'll be looking forward to, trying to take that next step. And if you want to be the champ, you got to beat the champ.
Henry, I have a question. I'm a football fan, but of the four major sports, it's the least I'm up close and personal with. We used to share rinks in the minors, even in Orlando. The Magic played where we did, TD Waterhouse. Baseball fan, I played baseball. The Expos were in Montreal when I played there. But football, I'm a fan. I bet on it every weekend, but I haven't really been up close and personal. Now I'm watching Quarterback on Netflix, and it's fascinating me. What fascinates me the most is the level of preparation. And I don't just mean when it comes to the playbook. I mean, everything involved with being a quarterback, how much energy it takes mentally and physically. Is the preparation now that I'm looking, was it any different? It must have been a little bit different when you came in the 90s or basically, what are the differences?
Well, to me, of course, there's always evolution as far as in each and every position that you play. But to me, there's really no difference as far as the responsibility because now, as back in the day, a lot of times quarterbacks had to help with the protection checks and all the responsibilities off the field of not only being the face, of the organization at different events, but also being the face and the spokesperson for the organization when it came to addressing the media and addressing the fan base. That stuff has never really changed. When it comes to the on-field aspect, to me, there's been some changes, but not really a lot because, guys, right now, I mean, just as Jacksonville last year drafted number one Trayvon Walker, who ran a 4.40 and weighs 270 pounds. So the fact that you've got these big defensive ends like the Chase Youngs with Washington Commanders and a number of defensive ends that are running wide receiver type 40 times. Yeah, there's much more of an onus on a quarterback to make quick reads, to be able to use his feet to get out of trouble. And that's the reason why you see guys like, Trevor Lawrence, a number of guys, Jalen Hurts, the Justin Fields, a lot more of the mobile quarterbacks are having the success, just as the days of the CFL, having a lot of mobile quarterbacks being able to extend plays and make plays with their feet. So when it comes to that physical demand of being able to last 20-something games and to get your team into great playoff position and push for a Super Bowl, those demands are definitely there, just like a CFL quarterback from back in the day during my time. But really, to me, as much as the game has evolved from a defensive standpoint with the stature of the athletes that you're going up against, to me, the demand and the responsibility of a quarterback is still there each and every day to hold yourself accountable. But at the end of the day, regardless if it's win, lose, or draw, you got to stay monotone and really, not really think too highly of yourself, to have a humble and have lots of humility as far as in your approach to your teammates. Because as a quarterback, you're nothing without your team, and that's the reason why you see the guys having success are guys who always pass the credit on to the guys that are lining up around them. Oh, I'm not hearing Jason. Yeah, I'm not hearing anything right now. Yeah, I'm not hearing anything.
That I watch golf a lot more, football a lot more, and definitely car racing of all kinds because of that. Sometimes it just takes to be informed a little bit and become more interested.
Now you say football, so I'm assuming you don't play fantasy football.
No, I started to, and last year I bought the online. I only got into it a few years ago, and I'm really intrigued. I started doing this podcast, and I was guesting on some, and often it would be like this. It wasn't always just hockey. There was a vague umbrella. And it was all the sports. Then I started watching Stephen A. and a few more, and I like the personalities. And so I started to get into it by default. I bought a few video games. I know that sounds silly, but in this day and age, you really can find out a lot about a game. And when I learned enough that way, then I was off and running. I still don't, like I said, of the sports, Greg's, football, I mean, it's out there for you. It's like horse racing, though. There's so many stats that you can follow. But I like when I can identify. Now you got me right.
Okay.
And that quarterback show. Okay, even though I'll never be a quarterback, even though it was totally. But I know what it's like to prepare and have to be okay. How am I going to get the puck? I'm a left winger. I got to get the puck out. I got to concentrate. I got to watch this video. So there are elements. There's parallels that I'm watching, and it intrigues me because I can kind of identify with.
Now, I think we got Henry back. He's nodding his head. I think he can hear us now. So that's fantastic. Henry, thanks for sticking with us. I do want to ask, is it just football is so massive, yet there's always a shortage of quarterbacks? You're talking, you've worked with young quarterbacks. Obviously, it's an extremely difficult position, but how come in 2023, you can't find like 32 really good starting quarterbacks in the NFL and, even, 9 equal starting quarterbacks in the CFL. Why is it so difficult that we haven't been able to, because this has been a problem for decades. There's never been like great quarterbacks on every team.
Well, I mean, you got to look at a number of different factors because, I mean, the game does, as far as the difficulty to play the position, I mean, it's a tough position in all the sports because, I mean, there's so much pressure on you play after play, the ball's in your hand each and every play, but also just the responsibility that comes with it, as far as just the off-field demands, the on-field demands, being a leader amongst your teammates, being a leader in the locker room, being able to facilitate things just to help, whatever, teammate situation that might arise. I mean, it's similar in hockey. I mean, especially like if you're the captain always, regardless if you're looked on as the captain, because again, can you imagine a rookie quarterback who just won a national championship with Alabama, let's say, or Florida, all of a sudden being thrusted into a position like this upcoming year. Caleb Williams possibly could be the number one pick, playing for the Arizona Cardinals, who we know possibly are in a tanking situation right now. How would you feel as a young man who is a son and a brother all of a sudden be thrusted into a situation where you're playing against husbands and fathers? I mean, it's a totally different dynamic that you're going up against, and people are putting billions of dollars on the line, all on your shoulders, to make sure you can not only secure your future and having the best future that you can, and trying to make the Hall of Fame and win some championships along the way, but also you've got the entire family's tradition and just their identity as far as their organization on your shoulders. So there's a lot of pressure, but to me, also it comes back to development. I mean, who are the guys that are out there truly developing these guys? Are we developing quarterbacks in the correct fashion? Prepare them for these moments. Again, you see a lot of quarterback gurus, quarterback trainings, and things like that taking place to teach kids how to throw the ball. But are they teaching kids properly how to throw the ball under pressure? Are they teaching kids how to read defenses? Are they teaching kids how to operate in special situations? I don't see a lot of that. And I see a lot of consistencies when I'm watching social media. So to me, yeah, I think it's great that kids get an opportunity to throw the ball more. That's why you're seeing more prolific quarterbacks performing at the college level. But again, you're going from playing against sons and boyfriends to playing against husbands and fathers. And hey, when a guy has something that they're playing for, especially that family at home, you're playing against a different dynamic of an athlete. And it's tough for a guy who hasn't been developed properly to succeed as far as in that moment.
Henry, thanks so much for joining us and for sticking through it. And we'll be following. We're going to be waiting to see what your announcement is on your next gig. And then we hope that you land on your feet and you're a quarterback coach where you want to be. And hopefully we can talk to you again very soon. Thanks so much. It's always great to see you.
Hey, guys. Hey, thank you so much for having me. And hey, tell Trey Ford to keep lighting it up.
Oh, geez. He's a pretty dynamic quarterback right now, isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Henry Burris. Man, that guy had a cannon of an arm. He could chuck the ball.
Yeah.
TR, how far have you ever thrown how far do you think you throw a football?
We don't have any football here in Newfoundland. It's about rugby, ball hockey, other things. I played everything growing up. Being an only child, I'm telling you, right? It was largely a neighborhood like that. Just we all played all the sports, but we didn't have. I played outfield and baseball. I'm sure I could do an okay job, and I'm interested. I just got into it late. There was one guy from here, John Drover from CBS. He moved to Calgary in high school. After high school, never played football in his life, and he ended up playing for the Stampeders and the Blue Bombers.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You got to, it's just, a lot of that so much is just about being a good athlete. Jason Gregor, Terry Ryan with you.
Sorry.
Yeah. No. It's probably a big dude as well. Like physical stature can help in certain positions in football. That's what's unique. Like body type in football is unlike maybe any other sport, right? Like you can be a small DB at $190, or you can be a 300-pound offensive lineman. Like you don't see that range of size in the NHL. Some guys are taller and they're bigger. Like Char is obviously a freak, right? But for the most part, it's guys are 185 to 205, right? That's kind of the middle, the range for the majority of the players.
Yeah, talk about range. Okay. Now, first of all, I wasn't diminishing football. No, it was just a great story from John Drover. He was a great runner and a really built guy. So Henry Burris, if we'd gone longer, what I wanted to ask him, he won his championships in 97 or 98, then like the late 2000s, it was like 08 or 09. And then I believe he won with Ottawa in like 2017. Think about the people that that won 3 in each sport. It might be like Patrick Maroon or Wayne Gretzky or Kevin Lowe or, like they're all there's a few that are in a row. Like he won with people that were born in the 50s and then he won with people that were born in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
So, for an I don't even know. I know people play that long, but he raised the Grey Cup with people, and I wonder if he still hangs out with the guys
from his first cup and then the guy with his last cup. You're right. Yeah. That would be a very different age group. I like that. Yeah. Well, next time we have him on, that'll be your first question. I like it. Jason Gregor, Terry Ryan with you on Sports 1440, also live on Orders Nation YouTube. When we come back, huge news in women's professional hockey. All the big signings. We'll talk about it with Hailey Salvian. And what does this mean? And is it just a free agent frenzy? What's kind of the plan after this? We'll find out next.
You're on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
3:43. So we continue on. Thursday edition of the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440, streaming sports1440.ca. Of course, you can watch us, say hello at the Orders Nation YouTube page. Lots of chatter on there. We like it. Some people love watching the show, which is great. You can see Terry Ryan, of course, is going to be our Thursday and Monday co-host here on the show, which is fantastic. Excited to have TR. Is going to tell us lots of great stories. How about that he taught Jason Momoa how to skate, and then that led to him getting into a film, which is pretty awesome. Now, you gave me the thumbs up. Are you telling me we've got the problems fixed?
I can hear you. If you can hear me, we're good.
Buddy, we are good to go now. Everything is good. Life is good.
I don't know what happened. I just left my computer on, but something happened.
Oh, well, you know what? The best one that most guys say, turn it off and restart it. And usually that fixes the problem. It's such
It often does.
It often does. It's a classic. There is big news in the hockey world right now. This is huge news, in fact. And we've been following this story. We've talked about it for a long time. I think it was something that the women's league, they needed one league. And now they have the PWHL, and they're making big signings. And to break it all down from The Athletic, Hailey Salvian is going to join us now. I think we got Hailey. Hailey, how you doing?
Hey, good guys. Thanks for having me. How's it going?
Hey, excellent. You're kind of like the insider. One of the people who's really focused in on this league. So for those people who maybe don't know, all 6 franchises had their big first 3 free agent signings. Now, is it a free for all the rest of the way, or is there going to be a draft? Because I think it's great for the players to have unlimited free agency to start, but I wonder about, is it going to be good for the leagues? Because some cities, some teams probably have, bigger budgets, more opportunities. So what's the plan to kind of ensure that the league, you can never guarantee that they're always going to be competitive, but at least try to give them a better chance to all be competitive?
So one of the things that this league is doing different than other leagues, and they have the ability to do this because they are paying players more. Like the original Canadian Women's Hockey League, I remember covering the first draft that I did there. I think it was in 2018, and you show up and it's like, oh, so the players just pick where they get drafted. Like that's how the CWHL draft went, is like Sarah Nurse would go and put in like, well, I want to live in Toronto, so I'm going to get drafted by Toronto. And then that's what would happen. Whereas this league, they're kind of having like a true draft with that kind of integrity that you would see in the NHL, in the sense of, if you get drafted to this team, then you will get signed to this team, and that's where you go. You don't, unless there is like a circumstance that you absolutely cannot leave this city, and there's something called a compassionate circumstance waiver for players to apply for. Like if there's something that is keeping you to Toronto or Montreal, that the league will approve, like you get drafted and that's where you're going to go play. There is this free agency that's going on right now, so it's a bit of a mix. So it's a 10-day free agency window where teams can go out and essentially sign their like first 3 franchise players, and they capped it at 3 for kind of that reason, Jason, of like making sure that, because a lot of the best players in the world are from Minnesota, that Minnesota's not just stacked, and that New York ends up being kind of crummy, or that Boston's not unbelievable. I mean, some of those teams are going to be better than others. It's just the nature of roster building as we see these GMs make their way through this process. But they capped it at 3, and then there's going to be a draft. There's already a draft lottery. So yeah, the free agency window ends on the 10th, and every team except for New York has been announced. So we're just waiting to see who the New York team signed. And then there's going to be a 15-round draft. The lottery, Minnesota got the first overall pick. So the draft order is Minnesota, Toronto, Boston, New York, Ottawa, Montreal, and then it'll snake through the rest of the draft. And then there'll be like another kind of free agent-ish period, kind of like in the NHL, like once the draft is over, or once the signing periods are over, like there'll be PTOs or tryout contracts. Players can just go to a team. If they don't get drafted, they can say, all right, well, I'm going to go to Toronto training camp and try to get a spot.
And we've seen that there's obviously a max salary that you can have, and I'm assuming some of these ladies are going to get it, which is well deserved. You mentioned New York hasn't announced theirs, so when you look at the players still available, do you have like a best guess on who you think they're going to announce?
So I've actually reported that Abby Rock is going to be one of those initial signings. She's one of the American Olympians. She's an excellent player. She's kind of like this great blend of skill and grit. Like nobody likes to play against Abby Rock. Like they just hate it. She's annoying. She's always in your face. She's always talking. She's always in the net. Like she's a Matthew Tkachuk type player. Like people just don't like playing against her, but they love having her on their team. So Abby Rock's going to be one of those foundational pieces in New York. I think one of the players that's still on the board who I believe has signed in New York is Alex Carpenter. The last time she played pro hockey, she was in Russia, and I think she scored something like 59 goals in 55 games or something. Like she's unbelievable. She can rip it. She's really quick. She's another American Olympian. So I think she's going to be another piece. And I heard that they signed their third player. But I'm not sure who it is. I think because they went two forwards, I think they're going to go for a defender or a goaltender in that slot. But I haven't been able to confirm who that player is. I think if they go D, like you could think of an American player like Savannah Harmon. If you're thinking goalie, there's a ton of really good goalies on the market. Nicole Hensley, Maddie Rooney, Nora Ratu. She's a Finnish goaltender. I think there's a bunch of different names that could be out there for New York in that third spot.
6 great hockey cities, Hailey. I'm wondering, when you mentioned the draft, what will the age be and what's the playoff format?
So the draft is going to be really interesting because we're going to see like college players getting drafted, but we're also going to see like 35-year-olds getting drafted. And that's kind of what makes this fun is they're going to be drafting 15 rounds, right? So we're going to see, I think the number 1 overall pick is going to be Taylor Heisey. She's 23 years old. She won National Player of the Year 2 years ago now with University of Minnesota. She won an MVP at World Championship. She's unbelievable. So you're going to see like a 23-year-old get drafted in the first round, but then you'll probably see a team come back with like a Jocelyn Larocque, who's on the Canadian national team. She's like 35 years old. So I think that's going to make this draft really unique and fun. The playoff format, we haven't really heard yet. I know there's going to be a playoffs. I think it might be a bit unique this year because the season's starting in January. A typical season, like year 2 of the PWHL, it's going to start in November and playoffs will start in May. And there might be, a longer playoff format. So right now, I'm not sure what they're going to do this year. I don't know if it's going to be all teams make playoffs or top 4 make playoffs, if it's just going to be 2 rounds. That is one of the items that we're still waiting for. We've got the teams, we've got some players, but we don't have like team names, logos, the schedule. There's still lots of stuff we're still kind of waiting for, but these players make it exciting.
I'm curious. When I played, even now, well, they got those BioSteel camps now. It seems that there's places. I used to go to Brainerd, Minnesota, and train in a pro camp for July and then go to Sweden for parts of August, to be honest. So there's a lot of players that used to do that. I'm curious, for the women, I had Tessa Bonham on my podcast. I should have asked her this. Is there places like Minnesota's hockey centric?
Yeah.
So a lot of girls are from there. Are there places that girls go to train together from different teams?
Yeah, definitely. And Minnesota's a big one. There's a lot of players who are from Minnesota who are just still there. And then other players who just like moved to Minnesota because that's where everybody is. Like a lot of the American Olympians either live and train or like bought houses or from Minnesota. So that's a huge hotbed. And they all just train together in the off season. And then a lot of times there's US national team camps in Blaine, Minnesota, I think that's where it is. So yeah, Minnesota is one of those. Toronto's a big one. A lot of the Toronto area players, a lot of the Canadian Olympians all kind of train and work together. There's one coach that has a ton of them. His name is Dan Noble. He's Mitch Marner's trainer. I think he has Anthony Cirelli as well. And what's kind of cool about Dan is like he just has them all together. It's not just like the women come at 9 and then Marner comes at 10. Like they're all just there in the gym together, working together. And I know like Brianne Jenner, Sarah Nurse, Renata Fast, like some of the players who signed in Toronto train with him. So yeah, there's definitely lots of hubs. I wouldn't say we're seeing like the BioSteel camp stuff in the women's game yet. I think there was a CAA camp recently that a couple one young women's player played in, which I thought was pretty cool. Like CAA had their kind of like young prospect camp, and Chloe Primerano was there. She's a 16-year-old stud in the women's game, and she got invited. So I'll be curious if we start seeing more like planned training camp type things like for BioSteel with the women's game. But there's definitely a lot of hubs where the players train and trainers that they kind of flock to. Montreal is a big hub as well. They all train at a rink in Verdun. It's an elite hockey player like specific facility with a ton of good trainers there.
Hailey Salvian joins us from The Athletic, talking about, of course, about the Professional Women's Hockey League. They've got New York's the final team of the 6 to announce their free agents, and they're going to have the draft, and then the season begins in November. Hailey, I think this is a long time coming. Anybody who's been covering the women's game and watching, even people who don't cover it, kind of realize they needed one league. And now they have one. I think you're going to have all the best women in the world, most of them anyway, playing in the same league. I think this strengthens it internationally, because now you should hopefully have some of Finland's best players and Sweden's best players and, Czech, Slovakia and the Czech Republic, all of their best players. If you had to guess, like, what do you think this percent, like how many Europeans are going to be playing this year in the league?
Well, first, it's such a great point that you made, Jason. And I think it's something that, like, Hailey Wickenheiser said this like over 10 years ago now. There was like that hockey summit in 2010. And one of the things that came up during it was like, what are we going to do with women's hockey? Because we can't just keep having Canada and the US in the gold medal game. And Wickenheiser went up and said, like, we need to get everyone all in one place. Like, everyone is going to be elevated once we're playing against each other all the time. If the Finnish players are trying to beat, Kim St. Pierre on a daily basis, like, we're all going to get better if we're playing against each other in a professional environment. And she said this over a decade ago. So it's a great point. And I think we're going to see the international game get better as everyone is playing in this environment consistently, because that's one of the things that make Canada and US so much better than everyone else is they are playing in these kind of professional environments. Even if it's not a league, it's the training camps, it's the access to the facilities and the training, etc. So it's a great point. And I would say in terms of the Europeans, it's really unique because a lot of the top European players are already signed to play in the Swedish Women's Hockey League right now. So I think the question for a Jenny Hirakoski, who is like a legend in women's hockey, she's going to be in the Hockey Hall of Fame for sure. She's played like over 400 games for Finland. She's played like over almost 20 years now on the national team. She set a ton of records. Like, she has a contract in Sweden right now. So like, and that season starts in 2 weeks. They've already played preseason games. So will she leave that team to come and play games in North America that don't start until January? I don't know. I think if I'm Jenny, I'm probably saying, like, I'm going to play out my contract here and then I'll come over next season. But I think we could have some pleasant surprises. There are some European players who were signed to play in the Premier Hockey Federation who did not sign in Europe, and they're just kind of waiting to get drafted or sign in this new league. I think the best European player we're going to see in this league, and I think it's so exciting and so important that people in North America are going to get to know her a little bit more, is Alina Mueller. She's from Switzerland. She just graduated from Northeastern, and she was a finalist for the National Player of the Year every single year that she played in college. Really great shot, unbelievable hands. She was an Olympian at 16 years old. So I think she's going to be someone, like, if you're Toronto with the number 2 pick, you got to take a good hard look at Alina Mueller. And if she falls to 3, I don't see a world in which Boston's passing up on her, because again, she played at Northeastern. So that's kind of one of the big European players that I would look out for. In terms of like sheer numbers, I'm not sure yet, because again, a lot of them are under contract with pro teams in Sweden. So if we don't see them this year, I think we could see them in the future, and that's just going to make the women's game at the international level even better.
Awesome. Hailey, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And we'll get you on. It sounds like you've kind of got the draft already planned out. So we'll have to get you on as we get closer to the draft. Thanks so much for your time.
I'm thinking about my mock drafts. Yeah, I'm staring at spreadsheets all day trying to figure it out.
Nice. Awesome. That is Hailey Salvian joining us from The Athletic. I think it's great for Terry. Of course, you have a daughter. We'll talk about that after the break. And just, you know what? She's an athlete. This is a long time coming for women's sports. Nothing happens quickly sometimes in business. They had the 2 parties, the 2 leagues battling back and forth. And, none of them had the wherewithal to just say, hey, is this actually better for the overall game rather than just for ourselves? And thankfully, there is one league. Let's get to the Con Man in a Sports Center update, brought to you by BIE Engineering, specializing in all of your structural engineering needs. Whether it's a process of a rental or building your dream home, they can help you out. Go to BIEENG.com. Here's Connor Halley.
The NFL finally returns tonight as the Kansas City Chiefs look to defend their Super Bowl title. They take on the Detroit Lions in Week 1 action, kickoff 6:20. Major League Baseball tonight, 6 games on the schedule. The Dodgers taking on the Marlins. The Mariners travel to Tampa to take on the Rays. Yankees host the Tigers. Cards up against the Braves.
sports radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Cons, you know what football movie this song's from? TR, are you a big movie guy? You a big movie guy?
Remember the Titans is the answer, my friend.
Yeah. Remember, you know the answer?
Yeah, Remember the Titans.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Great movie, by the way. Eh?
I mean, I know you asked Connor, but I got to pipe in if you're asking me if I watch football movies. I do. I watch a lot of movies, no matter what. Okay, I like it. It is the Jason Gregor Show with our regular Thursday co-host, Terry Ryan, former NHLer, now, of course, one of the stars of Shoresy. He will join us every Thursday and Monday. It's going to be awesome. Of course, if you want to check him out, he's also got his own podcast, Tales with TR. The Gregor Show is always presented by PlayAlberta.ca. You can get involved. You can text us 833-401-1440 in our Jiffy Lube inbox. We got a lot of texts coming in, some questions for TR. We'll get to those momentarily. But first, now this is something we're going to do every Thursday and Monday. Oh no, man, I'm quite excited about Terry's or TR's rant of the day. Now, sometimes, rant can sometimes people think it's negative. Not always. It might be very thought-provoking. You got to remember, he's an artist. It's very artistic. He likes to write. He journals. So and as we do this, we'll build out a nice little bed for you, TR, to make it sound even better for you. And so for anybody who's kind of a fan of the old show, there were Struds on. Well, this is TR's rant. There might be similar topics at different times. So without further ado, here's our first inaugural Terry's rant, brought to you by our good friends at Action Electrical, as they are celebrating 50 years in business. 50. TR's not even 50 years old. So they've been around a long time. Don started in his basement, and now they built it up. His son Blake runs it. It's fantastic. Check it out, actionelectrical.net. Here's TR's rant. Well, I'll tell you here's where I'm going to come from. When you ask me to do these rants, I do enjoy ranting, and I often have a lot on my mind, and I write them down for public speeches. Not so much like, it's kind of like a comedian would do for material, right? Because I know I'll always get to some point that no matter where I am, it's usually the same speeches, but I like to remember things, especially for hockey fans. So I didn't know what to talk about today. I don't offend too many people. Last week, I had a little incident with someone who tried to put me onto astrology, for example. Now, I know a lot of people treat astrology like religion. So meaning I don't want to step on anybody's toes. I have my thoughts. Exactly. You kind of already explained this, but I don't want to make people upset. So the next thing is, for reasons, I guess, purely mental, to give myself a break, I don't go on Twitter much anymore. I mean, I got nothing against it, but of all the platforms, I found there was a lot of poisonous stuff. And when I didn't have to analyze the game, now I do, and I'm kind of excited to get back. I took an absence, but I didn't have to analyze it. On my podcast, I'm more than anything, I'm catching up with people or interview, more in chronological kind of order, their life story, for lack of a better really way to explain it. That's often what my podcast. Now, tomorrow I'm going to have Andrew Shaw on. That's going to be a little bit different. He's been on before, and we'll shoot the breeze. But so in hunting online for some topics and just to be relevant and check out, all things hockey and the sports writers and everything else, you come upon some comments. Okay. So at the beginning of every season, I see a lot of people weigh in, especially Canadian teams, but that's probably just because I'm in Canada and it's hockey-centric at this time of year. But anyway, the only thing that annoys me, I know people get passionate and they talk about, who's going to be on the power play, who are we going to draft here? Are we going to fire so-and-so? Is the coach going to be here still at Christmas? What if we go on a 10-game losing streak? All the questions. What's going to happen in the playoffs? Are these guys going to have balls? Are they going to play with skill? All these questions, and sure, fandom is fandom. But what I hate to see is when people get so into it to the point of arguing and yelling at who's going to be the captains. If there's one place that's sacred as a player, even when I played, that's decades ago, it's the dressing room, especially now. You can't go out for a bite to eat. Everybody's got their camera. You can't comment much. Even if you don't want to post it, it's probably going to be posted by somebody else. Every quote, every opinion, every last comment can be scrutinized, okay? In that dressing room, I apologize to all you passionate fans that think you know what's going on, but you don't. If there's one thing that we are unqualified as people from outside the dressing room is to comment on who's going to be captain. Now, I'll go a little further with this. Well, I played in Montreal, of course. The results don't look great, but right, the results obviously don't. So listening to me about who gave me advice might be like, well, it was the wrong advice. No, not really. I got an injury, and sometimes it's life advice. There was a guy, Scott Thornton, who played on my team, who ended up being a great leader. Yes, played in Edmonton, for God's sakes. But so we had a dressing room. I mean, obviously, Vincent Damphousse is in the dressing room. Saku Koivu, obviously Shane Corson, Pierre Turgeon for a bit, Mark Recchi. So already you can only have three or four captains, right? So all these guys, I mean, then there was others that were quiet leaders. Peter Popovich, Mark Bureau, he comes to mind first. There was all kinds of guys that me, coming from where I was, the minors, defeatist attitude coming from Newfoundland, I just mean at the time, kind of, you know, I was almost too humble coming in as a player, you know, with confidence on the ice. I needed to really, like, it was hard to get over the fact I was playing in Montreal. Anyway, I remember Scott coming in. He sat in the same part of the room, and he used to give me some great advice. And, you know, I know people now say, you know, back then we used to use the training camp to get in shape. Not really. My dad did. We were there. It just wasn't as specific. We didn't have these biosteel camps, but like I said, we had camps. I had to work on certain things. The weird thing was, I guess we all had the same workout program. So me doing the same thing as Valerie Bure wouldn't make sense. But outside of that, it wasn't as specific, but we had to work hard. Okay. So Scott, I remember, pulled me in and gave me some great tips, you know, on how to work out and which attitude. And it wasn't just about being a player. It was about, you know, life and, you know, how is this going to affect you? And, you know, the kind of player that you choose to be now is the kind of person that you're going to be, the kind of coworker you're going to be, the kind of father you're going to be, the kind of son that you're going to eventually be. And I remember, you know, and I used to feel real comfortable with him and go, and I still talk to him. I had him on my pod a couple months ago. You know, we only played parts of 3 seasons together, but I've seen him now in the summers a few times. And when I looked at him, I thought, you know, like if there was a vote for captain, I would have voted for him as one of them. You would never say it at the time. A guy that had, I don't know, 10 points. He ended up, of course, excelling, but he was early in his career and little things like that. And I remember, you know, I can tell you a few stories. Mark Recchi invited me over for dinner and really, you know, like getting into the tunes with him till like 2 a.m, a few beers, and he knew I liked music, and, you know, really getting into the Stones and telling me why he liked the Who. And, you know, those were really meaningful things that fans don't have any idea about. Those are just 2 little examples. Now think of people in Edmonton, I guess, or Toronto, wherever the hell you're listening to this from, right? Those are things. It's not all what you do on the ice. Some of it might be obvious, but when it comes to captains, take your foot off the gas a little bit, put on the brakes if you're a fan, and just try to accept that there's some things that you just don't know. And one of them is going to be who is going to be the captain or assistant captains of a team, because it's not always obvious and you don't know what happens in that dressing room.
accommodations for its team, staff, and players. To Western Canada, visit juniorprospectshockeyleague.com.
Mr. Rooter hits the links.
So I tell the guy it's leaking because you have a hole in one.
Hey, Mr. Rooter, you have a better chance. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
It's a good tune, man. I have to say, we got some sweet tunes going on, and obviously it's the first week. Connor hasn't been able to expand his musical library as large as he would like. I'm sure TR will have a few requests on what you'd like. Like TR, if you had like a favorite song that you would want, what would it be?
I enjoyed that little lip sync ditty, but favorite song? That's tough, man. For this or just overall?
Like for this, like an intro. If we were having like every week, like Strutty liked ABBA of all things, and so actually we made it in very different languages, which was funny. And so that was kind of his intro. Like if you had one song that was very like TR-ish, what would it be?
Wow. I guess people call me T-Bone. They're bad to the bone.
Ooh.
I don't know. To me, the words have to go somewhat. There has to be somewhat of a connection. I mean, I love Equal Woman by ELO, but I'm not going to pick that for an intro song, so that on the spot, that's one that I could come up with that's safe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's fair. Well, you have some time. You know what? You put in a request to Connor if you like, and you can have a different intro song every day, every time.
Well, today, I tell you what it would have been. Not that I'm angry, but I woke up this morning. My phone went off with the alert. The Rolling Stones have a new single, and it's not bad. And I cannot believe I'm saying it, that they got a new album coming out. Mick is 80 years old, and the new single. I'm not. It came out it came out today. It was announced last night. Came out this morning. I got up. It's called Angry. Check out the video on YouTube. It's wild.
Oh, I did not know that. That is unbelievable. It is Jason Gregor alongside our Thursday co-host, Terry Ryan. We are live in the eWell studios. Are you ready to elevate your project? Well, contact eWell to discuss how they can partner with you for success. They provide premium quality electrical products. EWEL.ca is where you want to go for that. And TR, our next guest, a friend of yours, someone you know quite well, as we are going to go around the NHL, brought to you by McDonald's, where you can enjoy the Mighty McMuffin or the Mighty McGriddles breakfast sandwich made with bacon, sausage, egg, and cheese on a McGriddle or a McMuffin. Now, I don't know if they officially call him this or not, but many people would say he's like one of the OGs of Spittin Chiclets.
Mm-hmm.
Rear Admiral, everybody calls him R.A. So I don't know if I met R.A. first yet. I don't know if I can do that, but I just did. So I guess that's what we're going to introduce you to. R.A., how you doing?
Good. How are we doing, gentlemen? Thanks for having me.
Hey, buddy. First of all, I love the accent. I just have to say, man, the Boston accent. But I have to ask you right off, R.A. Are you okay? Because Bruins fans, that was the best regular season we've ever seen by a landslide. Unfortunately, it didn't end the way you wanted it. How painful was that?
I think the older I get, the easier it is to get over. You get older, life has some challenges that kind of minimizes, I guess, sports. I don't live and die like I did when I was younger. I mean, I was, I don't know if I can swear in here now. I swore a bunch after the game. Next day, it was over. I really do get over it pretty quick.
Okay, well that's good. Now what is your expectations this year, man? Because Bergeron, right? She's gone. Are they bringing Whitney out of retirement to play center? Who's playing center?
So Ryan Whitney, I hope not. I think Pavel Zacha and Charlie Coyle are there 1-2 right now. That's a significant drop off from Bergeron and Krejci. No disrespect, obviously, but Bergeron's a Hall of Fame. Krejci, I don't know if he's going to get in, but he certainly has Hall of Fame talent. They're gonna tread some serious water here. That's two huge holes in the lineup right now, and they were planning for this. They basically went all out for the Stanley Cup, didn't get it. They were going to be in this position whether they won the cup or fell on their faces like they did. But they still have a lot of good pieces there. I mean, Marchand, I know he's 35, but he's still a hell of a player. Pasternak. On defense, you get two number ones in McAvoy and Lindholm, and you get two number one goalies, even though they didn't use one of them in the freaking playoffs when they should have. So there's a lot of good parts there. They don't strip it down, don't start over. I think they'll have a little bit of suffering this year, and then they'll have some money next year. And Boston's still a pretty good destination for a lot of free agents. So hopefully it's just a year or so of suffering. They'll be battling with Ottawa, Detroit, and Buffalo for that playoff spot.
All right, great to see you, my man.
D, what's going on, my friend? I love you, buddy.
I love you too, my man. I think you were here last year at this very time, weren't you? Or no, it was a little bit earlier.
I think it was September. I don't even remember. I can't remember. COVID ruined my ability to tell whether something was a year ago or friggin' 5 years ago. But it was a great time. Newfoundland. If you ever get there, if you haven't been there, Canadians, listen. Oh, what a party place. Unreal, beautiful scenery. You got to have the tour from Uncle T as well.
There you go. Yeah, it was great. And New Hook's, it was in August. It was during New Hook's celebration party. Alex New Hooks, that is, good Newfoundlander that won the cup last year with Colorado. RA, are you looking forward to the Chiclets Cup? I assume you're going to be there.
Totally. Excuse me, a little cotton mouth for some reason. I can't wait, dude. I'm surprised we went back to Buffalo. But then again, I'm not, because that facility, excuse me, unbelievable. That Buffalo Riverworks, just an unbelievable facility for hockey, all the other stuff they do there. I can't wait, man. I'm not playing. I don't know if I'm coaching this year or what, but I'm just dying to get a little Buffalo action, late night bars, great restaurants. Buffalo's a slobber knocker of a city. Good time.
I'm curious what you think. I never heard. I usually listen to every minute of Chiclets. I'm curious what you think. I got a lot of Leafs fans that listen to my podcast. What'd you think of the Austin Matthews contract?
Yeah, probably about where I think most people expected. I mean, those guys at his level, at McDavid's level, they're just going to keep making the most money. Obviously the cap, they think it's going to go up significantly the next few years. So it could be a bargain in a few years. But it's nice to see these guys starting to make more money. But the owners always have them over a barrel. Every contract, it seems like they just can't get that solidarity to get a few concessions. But 13 and a quarter, it's good money if you can make it. I think after the deal, he's going to have 122 million. I think I saw. Excuse me. I think it's 122 million in his contract already. 30 years old. So he's gonna. That's the other thing too. He's gonna be a free agent at 30 when this deal ends. So good for him. I mean, I know we screw with the Leafs in Boston, but I like Austin a lot. He's a good kid. I wouldn't mind. Wouldn't mind at all seeing him get a nice Stanley Cup run.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys wouldn't mind him on their team. A lot of fans. The Rear Admiral joins us from Spittin Chiclets. All right, we've had a lot of people texting in already. Spittin Chiclets obviously has become one of the most popular, if not the most popular, hockey podcast out there. And everybody's like, "Oh, how'd you do it? What happened?" Take us back to kind of when you started and in your wildest dreams, did you think this was realistic? And for anybody out there who's starting a podcast, you have any advice for them?
Pair up with a former NHLer. That's the best advice. No, it's just timing. A lot of very fortuitous, nothing planned. I wanted to do a podcast, maybe movies, hockey, whatever, but I didn't want to do them solo. Solo podcasts are tough to do, especially when you sound like me. So anyways, me and Whit, we knew each other casually. We met a couple times. He was, local boy made well. He was also a big reader of Barstool, so he was reading my stuff there. And, we'd hang out, shoot the breeze a little, have a beer. We weren't like hanging out on the regular or nothing. And after he was done playing, after Russia, he went to Sweden briefly, came home, and he sent out that tweet, December 15th, 2015, and he tagged Biz in it and said, "I want to start one of these podcast things." And Biz said, "I got 2 more years left. Check back later." And I replied to Whit, kind of half joking, "A partner, huh? Partner, eh?" Right in my DMs, he's like, "Are you serious, RA?" I was like, "As a heart attack." He's like, "Do you know how to podcast?" I said, "I'll learn." And by the Super Bowl, we had our first episode out. And we were like SoundCloud rappers, Wayne and Garth on the couch, whatever, analogy you want to make. We weren't making anything. We were having fun. And then Dave Portnoy, El Presidente, the owner of Barstool, I was obviously writing for him for a while. And Whit was, one of our first, major athletes to follow the site. So he's like, "Hey, I listened to it. We want to add you to the roster." And then that's when the ads come in and the moolah comes in. And fortunately, I was able to quit my job as a Boston public school custodian, because probably would have jumped off a school roof by now if I was still doing it. And then, we were chugging along, and then we added Biz. Well, Biz was on a couple times, and Biz is Biz. He was even a little more unfiltered back then. And we weren't looking to add a third per se. We were like, let's ask Biz if he wants to join. And if he said no, we weren't like going to plan B. It was like, and like Biz was just a shot of adrenaline / testosterone, whatever, in the ass. And we just went to the moon after that. I kind of make the analogy, me and Whit won a title and Biz made us a dynasty. I hope it doesn't sound arrogant, but that's like the best analogy I can come up with.
How were the Barstool Awards? I saw that. I know, RA, why you got on there and the award you won. I'll just let other people find out. It was really funny, by the way, but I know it was probably unintentional. But I mean, you guys got to actually go there, and you were on display. You said some great. There's some great quotes. I really enjoyed the show. Is this surreal for you? You started, by the way, kind of a 2-part question. You started as a huge fan. I followed when you were writing years ago, but now you have access to everything that you didn't necessarily as a big fan, and you're still a fan. So all of it, I mean, RA, is this surreal or what?
Sometimes, yeah. I just try to keep a level head about it. I'm glad it happened when I was in my 40s instead of my 20s. I definitely would have effed it up in my 20s because I almost have in my 40s. So, I definitely pinch myself. I appreciate what we have, and like friends I made, like a guy like you. I become real good pals with. And, a couple coaches around the league, and so you look at your phone. Sometimes you see some of the phone numbers you have in there and kind of chuckle. But yeah, I just try to keep it humble, smile about it, appreciate it, and it's no plan. I mean, podcasts weren't even a thing when I graduated college, so it wasn't like I aimed to do this. I was trying to get a writing job, and me and Whit, going back to that briefly, chemistry is a funny thing because, we knew each other, like I said, casually. We, from different places, like Gritty City kid. He's from, a ritzy South Shore town. But that first time we talked, man, it was like two guys who love to talk, and it was just there, man. We just like bouncing off each other, and we were off and running, man. It was just such a crazy thing that just two guys who never hung out, and it clicked. So when Biz came, it was kind of like weird. It was like me and Whit were like brothers. And then when Biz came, I suddenly became the little brother, even though I'm friggin' older than those guys. So it was an adjustment period, because if you go back and listen to those shows, you can hear like little tense situation once in a while. But it's been an adventure, Terry, a roller coaster ride, and got to keep on riding until it goes to the end, whenever that is.
Wild. The first time, RA, that I heard you guys, I was telling them earlier how Jason Momoa got me into doing stunts. Well, I had one of the it was before Biz. I had it down. I think it might have been Brad May was on there, and I was literally getting ready to do a stunt. It was icy. I was out on the side of the river. I had my headphones on, and I was listening to you guys, and I remembered you were talking about. I think it was the first show I listened to. You were talking about being in The Town, and you were an extra in this movie, The Town. This movie is one of the great movies of today's era. Yes, I loved it. Now, you talked about that, and then when we laughed, and you laughed, and I got to know you and stuff, and said, I'm kind of in there, but we didn't know Shoresy was coming. Now, you're actually a player, as am I, in this show. But, I know from my angle, I'm going to pinch myself, but for you, are you going to pursue it? I talked to you earlier in the summer, and you said you were on a film set. Like, are you pursuing acting now?
I wouldn't say I'm pursuing it. I guess people have pursued me to take part in what they've been doing. But I've had an account with Boston Casting. They they hire extras, and I have a thing on file there where what do they call them? Casting directors, if they happen to see my picture and want to bring me in, that'll happen once in a while. I haven't gotten anything significant really from that. But yeah, I've always been a ham and egger, and I obviously The Town. No one knows it's me. It's my reflection in a mirror. I joke. I obviously play it up like you can tell it's me. But yeah, I've gone through a bunch of cattle calls in Boston. But with The Departed, I didn't get in. But Shutter Island, you just show up and you don't go in a tux and look your best, because you just don't. It's such a weird thing. It's just the casting director likes you, and they pick you. In The Town, they were filming for months, and then they called and said, hey, you still want to be in the movie? I was like, yeah. So like, all right, be at so-and-so tomorrow. And I had an apron and a white T-shirt. I was the cook in that wicked dive bar. And then Shoresy, they reached out to, I don't know if it was Granelli, our producer, or Boston, or whatever. There was some chit-chat going on, and I was asked, do I want to take part? I was like, yeah, man. I was like, I'll do it for free. No, I didn't say that out loud, but I mean, the fact we got paid to do that, T, right? You go up and you do it. You have no idea what the rest of it is, how it's going to come out. And then when it dropped, I mean, I sat there and pissed my pants laughing for 3 hours. It was so damn good. Jared Kiesel did such a great job, and it's become, I think, a cult hit, certainly in Canada. And just to have a little small part of that, it's priceless. It's awesome.
Rear Admiral from Spittin Chiclets joins us here on Sports 1440, also live on Orders Nation YouTube. And RA, to bring it back to the NHL, of course, we started with your Boston Bruins, and what the unbelievable year. Obviously, things are going to change a little bit this season, especially down the middle. But you mentioned about the goaltending, and I'm happy that you brought it up, because all season, basically, I looked at it from like the middle of November. Allmark never played more than 2 consecutive games in a row, and then you get to the playoffs, and now he's starting every game. And why do you think they went away with what made him so successful? Like, I know it's hard to switch your goalie, but you actually could have easily done it after game 3. And I know they were up 3-1. So maybe you can say, well, Gregor, that's a terrible excuse, but there were opportunities, easy to say, let's just play Jeremy Swayman, who's been really good for us all year. Why do you think they didn't do it?
I don't know. I don't know if Monty, he didn't have to coach a ton that season. Those guys, they were in cruise control. They were playing great. I don't think he had to really push too many buttons. And Nick Foligno was on the Cam and Strick podcast, and he gave a great answer. They asked him, what do you think went wrong? And he says, it might sound weird, but I think we made too many good moves, and we brought too many good players in. And the coaching staff had trouble trying to put this one in that slot and that one in that slot. They were changing the lineup every day. But back to Allmark. I sent the tweet after the game too. I says, get him out of there. Like, I'm not a goalie savant, but I mean, he didn't look like that once all season. Like he was rolling around like a little kid playing street hockey or something. A couple rough plays. And, to find out he had no more than 4 starts in a row all season, and then they start him 6 games in a row, and then Kevin Weeks comes out and says he had a debilitating injury, and it's like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing here? Because all you hear is we got 2 number ones, Ullmark and Swayman. It's like, well, sit the guy down who's not playing well and he's hurt, and put Swayman in. I don't know what they were thinking, and when they asked Montgomery, he said, talk to Bob Essenza, what do they call him, goalie Bob? Yeah, and it was like, Jesus, well, who's the fuck? It was like the fucking coach here, I won't swear. It's like, who's coaching this team, man? It's like you can't say it's on the goalie coach. I mean, you're the coach. Just awful. They got me all riled up. Just awful decisions. They blew it, man. They had 3 opportunities. And the fact that they kept Ullmark in 6 games in a row hurt. That's the what are we doing here, man? That was the brutal, because he had a lot of bad plays. I mean, he was hurt, man. And a guy's competitive. I mean, Terry, most guys aren't going to beg off, even if their legs hanging off. They're hockey players, and that's where your coach has to come in and say, no, man, draw the line, and you're sitting. All right, now you got me all riled up now.
Hey, RA, man, I love it. That's why we like it. That's why we want to have you on. TR's got one more for you.
Yeah, I'm seeing Carolina and Jersey in the East. I really am. I not that I'm fans of either. I think Jersey, I'm not going to say they came out of nowhere, but they really impressed me. And Carolina, I think they're eternally underestimated, and this year might be the biggest of all those years. Now, what I'm curious about, though, in that Eastern Conference, you got Pittsburgh, which is such an interesting story with the signing of Karlsson. Clearly went out of their way. They're going for it, but they're aging. What do you think? How do you think the Pittsburgh Penguins fare this year?
I mean, as good as Karlsson is, obviously he's a fantastic offensive defenseman, but he's not that great in his own zone. So I think Pittsburgh needed to improve their D. And I mean, as great as Karlsson is, I don't think they really improved their D in their own end all that much. What's his name? Brave fight. No, not the Smith. Who's the goal? Jerry. He looks like a number one, most of the time, and then he either gets hurt or has a couple bad games. So I don't know if they're question marks with Pittsburgh's goaltending. I don't have them as a top tier contender. I mean, as long as you got Sid, Gino, and Letangel, and now Karlsson there, they're going to have a good shot at it. But they're going to need consistency out of Jerry, and even then, I don't see them as, like I said, a top tier team in the East. But it's still wide open. I mean, there's 12, 14 teams who could win the Stanley Cup this year.
RA, we really appreciate you joining us today. Thanks for this continued success, and we'll see where hopefully your acting career follows in the skates of Terry Ryan.
Terry, sorry, the movie it's in called The Late Game. I filmed it down in Charleston, South Carolina last year. I play an angry Zamboni driver. It's gonna, I think, drop later this year, but you'll be hearing about it when it does. So
Late Game, all right. We love it,
boys. Thank you so much. Let's do it again.
That's the Rear Admiral from the Spittin Chiclets podcast, very popular. I like what he said. He goes, "Hey, hook up with a former NHLer." But you know what? It does help. I really believe, honestly, TR, the accent helps them. That really helped their pod because you stand out and it's different.
I totally agree. There's something to the linguistic. There's something pleasing to the ear, right? I mean, even I can tell you when it comes to the audio, the acoustics. I always find, ever listen to a book on tape? Not all of them are better, but sometimes if you get a good voice, like even listening to a guy like, this is going to sound cheesy, but Barry White, there's some, or even let's go. That's very deep.
Your clothes would just fall off when Barry was talking.
or Louis
Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong. Yes.
Wonderful world.
What a wonderful world. There's these classic sounds that voice really matters. And I find with RA, his voice and his accent, obviously it not only screams where he's from, but it almost gives you a set, like a good dude. He's one of the boys almost, Yeah,
well, as a Southie, right? Pretty sure
he's
that's
a Southie. Not everybody from Boston has that strict an accent, just like not every Newfoundlander speaks like Ted Hitchcock. But when you hear it, you're like, it makes you feel good, right?
Yeah, we're going to get a little Ted Hitchcock when we return. Also involved in 5 questions for the first time will be Terry Ryan and more. It's the Jason Gregor Show live on Sports 1440. You can stream it on any of the apps if you're listening on Stingray, on iHeartRadio, on the Radio Player app, and of course watching on Oilers Nation YouTube. We'll come back. We have 5 questions and more on the Thursday edition of the Gregor Show.
Some things just work.
Oh my goodness. This is one of my favorite songs of all time. Elvis Presley in the Ghetto. TR, what do you think?
That's the only song that Elvis wrote, and it's probably his best. Yeah,
that's the only song he wrote. Really?
I'm a big Elvis fan, but Elvis didn't write his own music.
Yeah, no, I knew he did. I didn't know that he wrote that, man, in the Ghetto.
Yeah, he wrote that. Well, he co-wrote it, but not a lot of people did then. People like Paul Anka and people in ivory towers would write songs and give them or sell them to artists and everything. So it wasn't. I'm not. That's why I love the Beatles. Came in right after and pretty much changed the game, and that was one of the ways they changed it. They wrote almost everything after their first 2 albums, but. I love Elvis, everything about him, and that's one of my favorite songs of all time. Elvis.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. My dad introduced me to Elvis when I was probably 14 or 15 years of age. The deal we made, I would drive to hockey and we could listen to my music, which was like Motley Crue and different things like that on the way to hockey. And then on the way home to the farm, he would introduce me to some of his music. And, obviously Elvis Presley was one, the Big Bopper. Oh, man, there were so many others just from that era, and I fell in love with it, and I still do. I still have lots of it. Reminds me of my father for sure, but man, some of those tunes from back then, the Four Tops, oh God, they were so good. The Supreme,
oh yeah,
Temptations, like I love it. So
me too. And by the way, good. Glad you brought up your father. You said something yesterday, and I wrote it down. It was so profound. We wouldn't try to live without air, water, or mothers. Why try without our fathers? When you said that yesterday, it resonated. My dad means a lot to me, as does my mom. But there's a unique relationship there.
You know what? It's true, and I think that men need to be more aware of the importance of fathers and, be a present father in your life. We're going to get into that, Tara, because a lot of our listeners, as we go in time, I really think it's important. People, when they feel a connection to their host and they get to know them a little bit more. And so we're going to do a lot more of that with you on Monday. Talk about, your ball hockey championship, but also, being a dad and all those other sorts of things. You're a girl dad, which is great. And, we'll talk a little bit about that. But first, it's time now for 5 questions brought to you by The Brick. They're committed to saving you more. And right now, it's The Brick's tent sale. 60% off clearance items, man. You don't get deals like that unless you're shopping for a Terry Ryan Montreal Canadiens jersey, man. Those deals are hard to come by. Check it out at The Brick and thebrick.com.
It's time for 5 questions on the Jason Gregor Show.
All right, guys, question number 1 today. Yesterday, we saw the announcement or the reminder of what's going on with the Heritage Classic. Connor McDavid speaking to the media. Some people think there's too many games being played in the big stadiums and outdoors. How many do you think would be the perfect amount of games that the NHL plays in these big stadiums?
I will say 2. I like having 2. You can have like the one outdoor classic, and then of course you have the I like the New Year's game that they've had for years. I think 2 is fine. I'm not one. Heck, if you wanted to do 3, I wouldn't hate it. But I like 2 because that means you've got 4 fan bases who are fired up every year. And if you just do the math, that would be literally, you could do it where you rotate every 8 years, and you'd have your opportunity if you liked. But I would go with 2.
For me, as a fan, like as my subjective view, just watching, I'm impartial. It doesn't really matter. If I was playing, it'd probably be a bit of fun. I'm sure it generates money. I don't want to say 1 per team, but if I said 1 or 2, then which teams get to do, I can take it or leave it. So I think everybody should have a chance. 1, if not, every 2, it was 16. There you go.
Toronto Blue Jays currently half a game ahead of the Texas Rangers in the wild card race for Major League Baseball. Will the Blue Jays play in the postseason this season?
TR?
I think they will. I know they're the last part of the year here. I think their schedule is a little bit favorable. I mean, we're talking a week ago, they're 3.5 games out. What scares me is that the people that are stepping up are rookies. They needed a big right-handed bat, and David Schneider's the answer. I didn't see that coming. Did anybody else on the planet see that coming? Did their head scouts see that coming? I really don't know. So that's the only thing that scares me. The Jays, I've been confident all year that they're going to make the playoffs. If they don't, obviously a huge disappointment. But I'm kind of iffy on who's leading them and the timing of all this. And please, Bichette, be healthy.
Well, that's the key, is the health. Chapman and Bichette. If they can get healthy, and as long as they're smart, I don't care what analytics number you look at, there is zero reason why Schneider shouldn't be batting every game. What the hell are you sending him out for a game? I don't care what number you're showing. It doesn't make sense to me. So sometimes, analytics have a really good value. Don't overthink it. This guy is red hot. Like, he's hitting 400 for fun, for goodness sakes. And he just hits big home run after big home run. So keep him in the lineup. You get Bichette and Chapman back, find out a way to get Schneider. And then I think they're going to still get in, because I do like their pitching staff.
Question number 3, since the NFL kicks off tonight with the Lions and the Chiefs, who's your prediction to meet in this year's Super Bowl?
Well, everybody's going to say it's a homer pick, but it's the obvious pick. You got the most dynamic quarterback. You got the best tight end. And once they get Mr. Clark signed, they're good. I will go with the Chiefs. Experience matters in football. We've seen it year after year. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. And on the other side, it's very early, but I'll go with the 49ers.
Okay. Are you elaborating, or you want me to go?
No, you go ahead, buddy. Well, that's it. There's only 2 teams in the Super Bowl, TR. I can't have more.
Okay. I'll go with should I go with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati?
Hey, I like that. I got him on my fantasy team, so that means he's having a good year.
I know that. Okay. There you go. San Francisco.
Okay. Nice.
I love Patrick Mahomes. Kelsey's out now. How long is that going to be, guys? I don't know. Like, football, one player can change everything, and there's only 17 games, and the world is over if someone goes 2 games and doesn't play well. So I don't know. Those are pretty solid picks, and that's what I'm going to go with.
Question number 4 as we head over to playalberta.ca. The over-under for tonight's game is 53.5. If I were to hand you $20, where would your money be going, over or under?
Well, you know where I stand on this, Cons. Now, this doesn't guarantee success. It's probably a terrible philosophy, but I don't bet under. So if I don't think the over hits, I just don't bet, because I don't like betting for low-scoring games in any sport. And hey, trust me, I don't win and that's why I don't wager very often. But it's the first game of the season. You've got Detroit's O-line is dominant. They're really good, and the D-line of KC, meh. You got even though without Kelsey, the magician Mahomes will do something. So yes, I think both teams are going to score 30 points tonight. So I'll take the over.
Yeah, early in the year, lots of mistakes. Teams that are capable of getting lots of points, I'm going to say the same.
And a final question for you guys today. It was on this day in 1979 that ESPN officially launched. In honor of that, do you have a favorite ESPN documentary? We're talking E60, 30 for 30, anything like that.
TR?
My favorite 30 for 30? Oh, God. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm getting those untolds mixed up with the 30 for 30s in my head. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to go You Don't Know Bo, because Bo Jackson. Now, I remember Bo. Obviously, I watched him play, but that documentary just reminded me of what a freakishly great athlete he was. And what was awesome about it was the younger generation who didn't really know about Bo Jackson. Because if you search up, all-time greats and statistics, he doesn't show up because he didn't play many games. But I had so many younger people we were talking about, and they're just like, oh my goodness, like this guy was an absolute machine. Like him running up the fence, crazy, throwing out guys from the warning track, mind-blowing, being so strong, Terry, that you rip your own hip out of its socket. That's how strong he was. That's what led to his injury. Like he was an absolute force. I would argue that he was the best pure natural athlete we've ever seen.
That's wild. That's intriguing. Okay. And I just, by the way, I was like 10 or 11 years old. All that was happening. And I remember at the time, your heroes are formed when you're that age. And I remember going like, is this like Michael Jordan's alive? Like Wayne Gretzky? Like, what are the odds? And then all of a sudden, this Bo Jackson came along. Wild. And that commercial, remember? The only sport he could play with hockey. But to go back, yes, I forgot. I needed to refresh. I love the Steve Bartman one with the Chicago Cubs.
Oh,
that's a great story. I mean, just a fascinating story. I don't know about great, but that whole, I don't want to get into the whole story, but those who don't know, it was the Chicago Cubs playoff drive, I guess, 15, 16 years ago. And Steve the Bartman was a fan that interfered with the ball. And anyway, there's a whole list of chaotic circumstances that came from that.
Oh, man. Those 30 for 30s are some of the greatest documentaries. They've spurred on a lot of other good ones, for sure. And, some it's hard to match up for that, but 30 for 30s are unreal. Cons, what's your fave?
Liked King's Ransom. Obviously, probably a tough one for a lot of Oilers fans who went through that to have to relive it. Thought that was pretty good. And then the U, talking about the Miami Hurricanes back in the 80s and 90s, just what they were doing, the swagger they had, kind of the bad boys of college football. Really liked that one, too.
Awesome. Well, there you go. That's 5 questions brought to you by The Brick. TR, I wanted to wait. We saved the best for last, but we want to give a big applause to the, you're the only national champion on the show today. All right? You're the only world champion on the show today. For our listeners who don't know, now, like, what was your stat line? I need to know the stat line for TR.
I led the team in points, man. I tied 4 goals and 10 assists.
4 goals, 10 assists. How many games?
7. But one game was a blowout against Great Britain. So, I think I got 4 points that game. That's why they're so inflated. The other games were fairly close.
Yeah. So this is the World Ball Hockey Championships. And so you're obviously a diehard ball hockey player, right?
Yeah.
Like you take it serious. How's your ball? Like, because I was coaching my son. Like, I love ball hockey. He's been playing ball hockey. Yeah. And man, like, he comes after a ball hockey game and he's sweating 10 times more than he does in hockey, just because there's no coasting. You're running all the time. But totally. Isn't it harder on your knees?
It is. I guess it could be. I guess everybody's different. Just like skating could be harder on your ankles. For me, I had a major ankle injury that, I did it in Dallas camp. That's why I had to retire from playing pro. I knew I lost a step. and I didn't have a step to lose when it came to hockey. If there was one thing I needed to work on, that was skating. And well, as luck would have it, I had a high ankle sprain. But for some reason, it didn't hurt when I ran. And I got into it at home. And it was always big around here, but I found out about the national program. George Gortzos was nice enough. 2003, I played my first world championship. We won. I had one shift in the final. And he just told me, he said, I think there's an opportunity here for you to be one of the best in the world. And to win, we won 2 men's open division championships. And then on a world level. And then 18, we won the Masters, and I just won. It'll probably be my last tournament, but it's awesome.
Are you announcing your retirement right now?
I never want to do that, but at some point, Peter Pan got to grow up. I'm 46 years old, and I got so many other opportunities, but I love it. And this time there was 5 Newfoundlanders, 4 other than me, and all my buddies, real good friends that I grew up with and against, and just real good friend. At this point, they're guys that I came all the way up with, and we don't make money at those things. We go and we get taken care of really well, and we the jerseys and everything. I mean, it's affiliated with Hockey Canada now. There's a lot. It's come leaps and bounds, but I never really thought I'm in the Hall of Fame, man. And I never thought I would say that. And I always got tears in my eyes thinking of George Gortzos. They're a father figure who took me in. I was tripping over my bottom lip, man, in the mid 2000s, early 2000s. I thought, what have I done? I'm a first round pick. Now I got to go home and be a Red Bull rep and just play senior hockey. And man, it was bad. And I found out I could be one of the better athletes in the world at something. Then, it really gave me something to work for. And those words that Scott Thornton told me, I told you years ago, I ended up using in ball hockey. It's true. And then, senior hockey, but this was the best that we could do in the world and for what we do and how, this was the Masters over 34, but we take it real serious and we're real proud. We get rings coming to us, and we've got a group chat that probably won't ever end.
Oh, buddy, that is unbelievable. Well, I do want to get into kind of your history and stuff. Being a first rounder, you've already been very open about that. So I look forward to it. The next edition of TR on us coming up on Monday. I think Mondays you might even stay a little bit longer, which is fantastic. But we'll discuss that. But Tara, thanks for sticking through it. We fixed all the problems. All of our digital and technical issues have been running smoothly here. We had our camera gurus. This is the longest we've gone without a camera blackout in 3 days. So we're pretty excited about it. I think we had the technicians. They had to bring in the big dogs, right? They had to bring in the big dogs to figure it out. And it looks like everything is solved. So that's going to be smooth sailing from here. We're so excited to have you on the show, man. We look forward to it. Obviously, we're pumped up. Again, what is the release date for season 2 for Shoresy?
September 27th. And I'm looking forward to it as much as you are.
Oh, buddy. So in 20 days from now. Oh, are you going to have like a viewing party?
Yeah, for sure. They'll send us the episodes probably 10 or 12 days early. And I usually get my buddies, my family, and we watch it on my big screen, my dad's big screen downstairs. So it'd be a lot of fun.
Man, well, I can't wait. We'll be, you know what? I can tell you right now, there's going to be a lot of listeners of the station who maybe haven't watched it, but as they get to know you, they're like, oh, I got to watch Shoresy. I got to learn about Hitch, man. So watch season 1 now. You can crush it season 1. So you'll be ready for season 2. We're giving you 20 days notice. That's a lot of time, right? You should easily be able to crush season 1 in less than 20 days.
20 minutes per episode. You can have it done in a part of a night.
Yeah, part of a night. TR, this is great, man. We're so pumped to have you every Thursday and Monday. We appreciate it. Have a good time, and we will talk to you on Monday.
Okay, this is awesome. Thanks again for having me, and I really look forward to the year.
There you go. That is Terry Ryan is an absolute beauty of a guy. We're so pumped to have him on. And as he gets more comfortable, man, he is funny. His sense of humor, his wit, I think the audience is really going to enjoy. Great storyteller. And he's texting me, goes, yeah, we'll get Momoa on the show. And I'm just like, what? It's unbelievable. So he's taught Momoa how to play hockey. So he owes him one, which is fantastic. Let's get to a sports 1440 update brought to you by Edmonton Kubota. They're as excited as you that Sports Talk is back on 1440. And they're so excited that right now they got compact BXB tractors, all of them in stock for 0% financing for up to 84 months. Check it out online at edmontonkubota.com. Here's Connor.
on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Welcome back, everyone. Thursday afternoon on Sports 1440. Gregor Show is always presented by PlayAlberta.ca, and we made our picks. So what we're doing every day on the show, in conjunction with PlayAlberta.ca, it's all for charity. So we make a $20 wager, and we parlay 3 picks. Didn't win yesterday. That's all right. But we do it every day, and at the end of the month, everything that we make, which is hopefully something, we donate to charity. Kids Sport is who we are donating to this month. We get listener interaction, get some suggestions. Some days we're going to go a little bit, maybe more in depth on player props and different things like that. Play Alberta has their boost bets now that you can make that are pretty unique and fun. Today we had KC over Detroit, just straight up. Con Man is going old school, just going straight up. Also, then we have the Dodgers over Miami and the Yankees over Detroit. So a double dose of losses for Detroit, Con Man.
Yeah, I don't know what I have against Detroit, but winning is contagious. So we're gonna start this one, build it up, and keep it going.
Okay.
Then we'll get into the prop bets, maybe some anytime touchdown scores, things like that.
Probably like on Friday, there's lots of options for a weekend, man. You could have lots of fun ones. You can get 50 yards receiving, rushing yards, lots of different things like that in CFL and NFL. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. So now, hey, let's get to our regular 5 o'clock guest every day on the show from Sportsnet as we get to the Spec Report brought to you by GS Construction. And you know what? We're going to talk about GS next time we have Terry Ryan on. Of course, he's very good friends with the owner of GS, Taran Sandwith. Quite good buddies. So he'll probably give us some good dirt on what Sandwith, he's a much better owner than he was a player. That's what I can say. GS Construction, great company to work for, especially if you're remotely sports oriented. You will love it there. They love their sports. So they're hiring right now. Go to Indeed.com and look up GS Construction as Mark Spector from Rogers Sportsnet joins us on the show again. Spec, how are you?
Doing pretty well. I heard a little bit of Terry Ryan earlier. He's a funny cat.
Oh, dude, wait till he gets more comfortable. He's a really funny guy. And if you haven't checked out Shorzy, I recommend to all of our audience members, hey, when one of our co-hosts is in like a regular appearing series, we got to support him. So, we might even plan to maybe have like some sort of viewing party on the 27th for that. That should be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to that.
That always kind of reminds me of the Trailer Park Boys. Goes hockey, Oh,
yeah. No, it's classic. The accents, definitely a little bit of Letterkenny. Jared Kelsey is going to be joining us on the show here before the 27th, which will be awesome as well. Now, the Edmonton Oilers had open skate today for the media. They'll do one today and then again on Monday. And then that's it, thankfully, because let's be honest, it's not like you can evaluate players whatsoever for this. Raphael Lavoie not on the ice today because he was in Washington for the rookie orientation, which usually goes to rookies that they think are very close for a chance if you're going to make the team or not. And usually an organization sends somebody, and so that's the guy that they sent. So that's good for Raphael. Nurse and Kane not part of it today, but not a big deal. I think that the story, the one guy that I'm most interested in, just because I didn't play very much last year due to injury, is Curtis Brown and Connor Brown, excuse me, Curtis Brown. But Connor Brown, and as I was watching it, I'm watching their scrimmage, and as I said, I don't take too much, but I'm like, geez, this guy plays a lot like Hyman, like relentless style. And then, funny enough, Leon Draisaitl brings it up in his press conference earlier today, which leads me to the question, Spec, for far too soon. Where do you expect Connor Brown to start opening night? And I'm not expecting him to stay there. Where do you think he starts on opening night?
Well, I know that you were talking earlier, if you can have Hyman and Brown on the same line, and I don't see why you would, right? To me, they're the same kind of player. They're both, listen, we watched him now, very little live and in person. Of course, we've seen him play over the years, watched him on TV a lot, especially when he was with the Leafs. But friends of mine who covered the Leafs and covered them for a long time, that's the very first thing they said. Hyman light, right? He's plays the way Hyman plays. He has, as Draisaitl said today, he's got an unbelievable engine. He's one of those guys. He never quits in a puck, right? He's the guy digging it out, winning the battle, getting the puck to the next guy, and before you know it, it's on the right stick and it's going in. So I don't, you know what, those guys, they're such a great weapon to have with skilled players. I don't know why you'd put him and Hyman on the same line. Doesn't make sense to me. I think you get one of them digging out pucks for Connor McDavid and the other one digging out pucks for Leon Draisaitl. I think your team's a whole lot better, isn't it?
Yeah, in theory, for sure. I can see that. And I get, is it kind of Holloway, Fogle, McLeod? Is that the obvious third line to start for you?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good third line. Those are all, to me, you know what? I always look at players like this, Jay, and I think if you're, Connor McDavid said the other day, we're not sitting around here waiting for the first round pick to come in and make a huge impact so we can win. That's not what this team is anymore. And I look at all those guys. McLeod is at this point in his career, he's a third line player and a good one. If he's on my third line, I like my team. I say the same about Fogle all day long, right? If I got Fogle in my top 6, and I'm not trying to take a shot at Warren Fogle, but I think if I got Warren Fogle in my top 6, I'm already looking for an upgrade when the season starts. Well, he's in the top 9 here where he should be, and so's Holloway. Holloway, gone are the days. How many times, Jason, have we watched some new kid show up in Edmonton who's young and trying to make his way, and they give him a ton of ice time. They put him in the top 6. They're relying on him, and it's no way to grow players. Holloway gets to come in this lineup as a bottom 6 player the way he's supposed to. And you know what? If he knocks the doors off as a left winger and he steals somebody's job, well, great. But he doesn't have to for this team to be successful. That's why they're a good team now, and they weren't a good team then, Jason.
Mark Spector joins us, the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440 and live on Oilers Nation YouTube. When I watch Brandon Sutter today, he's everything that you want. When I see the size, I see the right shot. I was watching him win some faceoffs. I know it's only a scrimmage. I don't know because the pace of this is not anything I can evaluate accurately to see if it's even close. And that's why I don't put a ton of stock in preseason games either, to be honest. But man, watching him today, you're just like, yeah, fair point. He's like, this guy would be the perfect fourth liner if his conditioning is there, right? Because I think he's got enough skill that he can be a fourth line guy and, chip in 8 to 10 goals kind of thing, kill some penalties. So, and then Lane Peterson is the wild card for me. And I've asked my nephew about him because they play together, and he goes, you know what? He's got more skill than people think. And so I looked at Lane Peterson a little bit smaller, but again, kind of the same thing. And then I look at Sam Gagner and I'm like, man, Gagner's going to have a hell of a camp to beat out both of those guys.
No, absolutely. There's going to be question marks around Sutter because of his situation, right? Hasn't played for a couple of years, long COVID. And I'll tell you what, the back half of Sutter's career, he's had a ton of injuries, right? He hasn't played. Go to his hockey DB profile. I haven't lately, but I'll bet he hasn't played many 60-game seasons in the last half of his career. But and all those things we know about. There's issues with Gagner's coming off hip surgery. The Peterson kid, we just don't know much about. If all things being equal, to me, Sutter checks the boxes I want for my fourth line center, right? He's the best face-off man, I would suspect, of the 3. He's the biggest of the 3. Does he have enough skill? He's a fourth line center. How much skill do you need, right? Sorry about that. He's a fourth line center.
Fine.
I know.
That's a fine.
How much skill do you need? Don't tell me my fourth line center needs to score me 20 goals. That's not what happens around here. I need a fourth line center that I could put out at the end of a game to win a draw when I'm leading 3-2. So I'm not that worried about skill for my fourth line center. Look at Ryan's down on that fourth line. What did he score last year? 12 goals?
Mm-hmm. Which is good.
So they got a little skill down there. They got enough skill down there, right? If you told me to pick a guy right now, sight unseen, as much as I like Sam Gagner as a man and as a person, I'm picking Sutter. But we're a long ways away from giving that job away, man.
Yeah, that's fair. Mark Spector joins us. Philip Broberg, Vincent Desharnais. It's an intriguing battle for the number 6 spot, I would think. And because I watched Brett Kulak today, and honestly, and so this is my question: is there a more underappreciated player on the Oilers? And not underappreciated because people don't respect him, but for a guy like the last 2 playoffs, Brett Kulak has been unreal as a defenseman in both years. He was excellent for the Edmonton Oilers. And I look at him today and just, they only had 5 defense on that one. So he's out there way more. And I'm watching him just like, look at him skate. Like, he just doesn't get beat very often. He's not a top pairing guy. He's an excellent third pair who can easily moonlight in your second pair. And so I noticed that. But then I'm watching Broberg, and today he was with Ekholm, which doesn't mean anything for anybody. I don't want to read too much into it because they're switching pairs all the time. But you had him on the right side with Ekholm. And I look at Vincent Desharnais, who, had a brief chat with him today, and he's all fired up. He feels like he improved a lot of he really wanted to work on his skills in this summer, right? He wanted to be better puck handler and stuff like that. And so they're so different of like Broberg's, is a very good skater as a young player, but Vincent Desharnais is more just defensive minded, right? He's going to block shots, kill penalties, and be physical. That's what he does. Where you come out on the blue line, and if Broberg can't play regularly, would you put him in the minors to start so he can play 25 minutes a night?
Yeah, listen, I'm Philip Broberg, and I got drafted in the first round thing, which I'm not saying he's saying that, but we all know when a team spends a first round pick on you, you get a certain spin off of that for a certain amount of time, right, Jay? Everybody knows that. That's just how it is. This is it for that spin, okay? He's going to get a chance this year, and he should get a chance. To me, I'll be honest with you, I thought they wasted the kid's season last year the same way they wasted Bouchard's season the year before. I hated the 11-7 setup when Broberg's playing 2 minutes and 48 seconds in a game. I thought that was if you're going to play a guy 248, go out and find a veteran defenseman that's 32 years old and waste those minutes on him. I hated that season for Philip Broberg last year. So this is the year. They need young entry-level contracts on this team. They need to develop this young player finally, and he's going to get a real shot, I'm going to say to you, in training camp and probably for the first 15, 20 games. To me, he makes the team no matter what. And by the end of November, let's see. If he's swimming, he's going to play here. If he's sinking, he's not waiver eligible yet. Down he goes, and I don't even think about him until March. But it's time for this player now. What is he, 22, Jason?
Yeah.
He's 22 years old. I don't love the way they've developed him. I won't lie to you. I thought last year was not very good. And we talked about this. And so remember, Rashad and you battled on this forever. We didn't like the way they developed Bouchard 2 years ago. And Ken Holland said this. Remember his last press conference? He goes, yeah, maybe we should have got him going a little quicker, right? In hindsight. So I think the same thing's going on with Broberg. I love the fact he's playing a little bit with Ekholm because I think that's what he needs. Taking a kid, putting him in on his wrong side, you better have him with a veteran. So this is the time for Broberg. It's time to make it. Or, you know what? If you don't make it, he could be the young player that goes somewhere at the trade deadline for more experience.
Yeah, no, it's possible. But I will say this, man. I just look at the history of teams that have traded young defensemen. And, man, historically, there's lots of mistakes. Like you look at Chris Pronger, for goodness sakes, comes to mind. Like there's been lots of young D-men that got traded out. They played 3 or 4 years and they're just not there yet because that's just how the position is. And so I can understand if the Oilers were ultra cautious because now if you win the Stanley Cup because of the trade and Broberg goes on to have a 10-year career, it's worth it, right? There's no question about that. But if you don't, then obviously there's potential risk in that. So it'll be fascinating to see.
How good's the player? Like, that's what we got to find out. How good's the player? Yeah. I'm not going to lie to you. I've asked a bunch of scouts who've watched this guy, okay? Different scouts from different organizations. You know how it works, Jay. We did this with Puljujarvi, right? Back when everyone in Edmonton...
I don't put him in that category.
I'm not saying they're the same guy, but let me finish. Everybody in Edmonton thought Puljujarvi was the greatest thing ever. And every scout and GM and assistant GM and hockey person I talked to said, Speck, I don't know if this guy's going to be as good as people in Edmonton think he's going to be.
I never thought he was that.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying. So I've not heard other scouts say, oh boy, I hope the Oilers put Broberg out there because I'm going to tell my GM we want this guy. I haven't heard it. So it's up to the Oilers to develop a player that other teams really want, because at this moment in time, I'm here to tell you, scouts aren't salivating over this guy and the way he plays.
I think Broberg, when you look at the historic path for the majority of European defenders, he's just starting now. Go look at Oscar Klefbom early and see the player that he was and then who the player he became. And historically, there's lots of European defensemen that do that. It's, you know what? You play your whole, now it's a little different now because they're playing on smaller rinks, but for the longest time, they played on the bigger ice surface and a not as physical style of play. It's just very different. And so it takes a lot of time. Like the Miro Heiskanens are very unicornish when it comes like that. So I'd still be ultra cautious, but at the same time, if you can acquire a really good player for Philip Broberg at the deadline, I could understand why that would be something you would consider because the Oilers are in win now mode. There's no question about it. But there is that potential long-term risk of what Philip Broberg might become, you know, because, hey, if all he becomes is a really solid second pair D-man, there's nothing wrong with that, man. Like Nicholas Ajarmelson was an unreal defenseman for Chicago for many, many years. So
yes, he was.
Yep. Spec, always good to catch up with you, buddy. We will see you tomorrow. Have yourself a great day.
All right, Jay. Thanks, man.
That's Mark Spector. It's the Spec Report brought to you by GS Construction. The Bison returns. Next on the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440, presented by PlayAlberta.ca. Remember, you can always text us at 833-401-1440 in our Jiffy Lube inbox.
alberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Thursday afternoon continues on. Edmonton Sports Leader Sports 1440. That's right. This is day number 3. If you're just joining us, maybe getting off work and you're like, what? I hadn't heard about it. We're back. Sports 1440. Of course, you can get us in a lot of places online, sports1440.ca. If your signal isn't always as crystal clear as you'd like, I'll tell you a little secret. For the last 2 years, I actually listened to 1260 on iHeart all the time for a variety of reasons. Because, I was downtown lots. I would drive in and out of the parkade for practice and stuff, and iHeart never goes out in the parkade. Right? Because there'd be times I'd be, it's a good interview, and I'm driving in, goes out. So I got iHeart, and I just got into the habit, and that's where I listen to it. And it's crystal clear all the time. So you can check it out there. Also, you can watch the show now live on YouTube, Oilers Nation YouTube, and hit the subscribe button. Okay, we got to get rolling here. We got it. We have a goal to get to 20,000. We have a month. We want to get to 20,000. We're at 16, which is nice, but we'd like to get to 20,000 subs before then. And I'll tell you this: it's very easy. Even if you don't watch it all the time, just want to subscribe. You know what's going on. But also, we're going to give away some tickets for all of our subscribers to go to some games starting in October. So check it out at YouTube for Oilers Nation. Everything, everywhere we're at is brought to you by playalberta.ca. Also, tonight, kickoff to the NFL season. And the Duke, as Kevin Carius has named him, Brannon, he's going to be live at the Ellerslie Brew House. Okay, so there's a great place. If you're on the south side, you want to go watch the game there. They got unbelievable prizes to win. Get into the draw. You could be going to the Super Bowl. You know how expensive it is to get the Super Bowl? It's like 10 grand a seat, 5 grand a seat. It's ridiculous. So you'll have that opportunity, which is amazing, and should be a pretty entertaining game. Or, you know what? You can go see Gavin at First Round from Oilers Nation. He's there too. So we got you covered in all sorts of different places, which is awesome. Now, we welcome back to the program. Gentlemen with probably, you know what? I'd like to give out a few nicknames, but this is one that has stuck for a long time. Many people now call him that. Rubes. Ruben Bronte, a.k.a. Robin Brownlee, joins us again. Rubes, how you doing?
Hey, fantastic, Jason, and thank you for carrying on the tradition of the misspelled press pass from my last stop at Maple Leaf Gardens. As you know, that's where that nickname came from. Thought I was a big deal, thought everybody knew me. I show up for the last game at Maple Leaf Gardens, and instead of Robin Brownlee, it's Ruben Bronte. Perfect.
Like it's so great because it's not even close, right? Like it's not remotely close, which is what makes it even more awesome. Like I hope you would have kept that somewhere, because that would be unbelievable to have.
Yeah, I got it, Jason. Hey, I got to tell you too, because I know you've been up to your eyeballs getting this thing rolling. I've been sitting here watching basically everything since you got started, and once we get all this, the little bugs out of the way, and that happens, it's to be expected. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I love that Terry Ryan segment, and so far so good. I'm loving it.
No, it's been good. You know what? We have the camera. Declan might have lost 5 pounds in the first few days because how often he was switching out the cameras or overheating it. And so we brought in our camera guru, the tech guy, and he had to go in, and basically Connor can probably explain it better, but what did he reset? He just something inside, they had to reset it. And it's not like turning it off and on. It was a little bit more technical, but you know what? It's been 2 hours now and we've had no issues. So I think we have the camera solution solved, Cons.
Yeah. There was inserting a little drive into it to do the update, and he was kind of weaving in and out of us, getting it all done. We had to do one ourselves. So pat on the back to us for figuring that one out. But looks like, I'm going to knock on wood here, looks like we got it all figured out now.
Yeah, that's outstanding. So, Rubes, let's start with the green and gold. The Elks, of course, disappointing loss on Monday, which, and this sounds strange to say, but I actually think that's kind of a positive. There's a disappointing loss because for the longest time, it wasn't disappointing. They were just an ass-kicking loss. They weren't even close. Like, that was a game they played quite well. Now they're back at home. Like, I think that Trey Ford has injected a little bit of life into fans of the green and gold. And I think we might have a pretty decent crowd on Saturday. And I think the Elks have a really good chance to win.
What I saw, Jason, is this. I don't know, and frankly, I don't think Edmonton is playoff bound. And to me, it doesn't really matter. A lot of people are going, what? What matters to me when I look on from a distance is watching Trey Ford and how different this club is when he's running the offense. And let's not forget, he's running an offense by Jarius Jackson, and that's been a big change over how they started. This guy, so many times, even in that loss, I mean, let's face it, he didn't allow all those points in the fourth quarter, but there can be good coverage and he outruns it. There can be the right calls defensively in the backfield and he throws through it. This is a very talented guy. He doesn't go in the Hall of Fame after just 4 games, but holy cow, does this guy look like he's something special so far? I mean, he's plus 800 yards passing, but he's another 320 yards rushing. This guy's got some tools. He's got people buzzing about the offense. Too bad about the defense last time out.
Well, the fourth quarter defense, because, man, for the first 3 quarters, I was like, they're really doing a good job of keeping Calgary out of rhythm on their heels, and then everything kind of fell apart in the fourth quarter. They lost a little bit of aggression, and who knows if inexperience plays into it or not. But I'm kind of looking forward, to Trey Ford, because if you look at how many games he's actually played, Robin, even going back to his college days, like, this guy is so raw. And I just think where he could be, like, when we watch Trey Ford now, and if people are patient, and specifically the Elks, if they're patient, you watch in 2 or 3 years when Trey Ford now has, 400 passing attempts a year under his belt and has played 16 or 18 games, now he's up to 40 professional games or something. Just watch, I think, the difference of the player, because his raw ability is what got him here, because he didn't play very much even in college. So I'm kind of fascinated to see where he can go. He can be one of those clear late developers, and not developing in skill, but just developing in gaining reps. And I think that's going to be huge for him. Now, speaking of gaining reps, we were talking about Philip Broberg. We got some texts already coming in at the text line at 833-401-1440, because people were mentioning, hey, like, is Philip Broberg a guy, if he doesn't get ice time, do you contemplate moving him? And, there's a laundry list of young defensemen that moved on to other organizations because, they traded him away too early. In some cases, they didn't like him or didn't think he'd play. In other cases, they put him in a package because they wanted to win. And if it's that one, I can live with it. But do you think the Oilers have to commit to say, he's either our 6th defenseman when we play 6, or he's in the American League? Is that too cut and dry?
You know what? It's cut and dried, but I think it's on the money, Jason. You can't have him eating popcorn looking down on the ice from the press box here. It does him no good, and frankly, it does the Oilers no good. At the same time, you don't throw him in unsupervised, so to speak, into the deep end and hope that he doesn't go under. You need to try and fit him in and play him in a position where he's got some cover. And you can look at the guys on that defense and see who might provide that. I mean, look at the difference that Ekholm made last season with Bouchard. Bouchard got off to a relatively good start, and he's further along than Broberg is now. But having that, I call it cover, having that guy who knows where to be and when to be there, it doesn't. You can make a mistake without it going back up the other way and ended up in your net, because that'll shred a player's confidence faster than anything. So yes, you need to find out what you've got with Broberg, because otherwise you're just wasting them. And if you are, don't lose them foolishly. If somebody's interested enough to pick up the phone and call you, and it's part of a deal that you can make to make your team better going into the playoffs, assuming the Oilers are where we think they're going to be, in other words, in contention, then you take a long look at it. But you got to do it properly. You don't just, they've blown it enough times with young D-men, and you can really get burnt, and it sticks on you for a long time when you give up a young kid and he goes on to play 10 years somewhere else, and he's really good.
Robin Brownlee, aka Ruben Bronte, joins us on Sports 1440 and live on Oilers Nation YouTube. Rubens, are there, like, this is funny. I've covered the team a long time, over 20 years. And usually, there's a few jobs where you can debate, okay, this guy, there's 3 openings. Now, for many years, heck, there was 5 or 6 because the Oilers just weren't very good. This year, there's probably 1 forward spot up for grabs. And I would argue, if they're going with 6 and 12, then there's 1 defense spot between Desharnais and Broberg. And I don't see that as a negative. It's probably a bad thing for pundits and scribes and fans who like to debate about different things like that. But I think it kind of shows where the Oilers are at in their development. They're coming in, this is a team that's going to compete. But do you have any lean towards any of Peterson, Lavoie? Maybe they move Ryan to center, Sam Gagner, Brandon Sutter. Do you think there's anybody at all who's a front runner for the 12th forward to start training camp?
I don't know if there's a front runner because I don't know what Woodcroft and his staff are thinking, Jay. But I tell you what, I look at a guy who has the tools that Sutter has, and I think he might be a fit there. Everybody, you can make a TV series about it. Everybody loves Sam. He's a terrific guy. He's got the greatest attitude, right? And you want to see the guy do well. I don't know if at this point in his career, does he bring more to the table than Sutter? He certainly brings different things. So I wouldn't mind Sam, but I don't know. I want to get a look at Sutter myself.
Something tells me that Sam Gagner is going to end up signing a contract with the Oilers. Might be a 2-way contract, and he might start in the American League. But something tells me he's going to, because I think he'd be an unbelievable mentor. He'd be an unbelievable leader down in Bakersfield because of the personality he has. Now, I'm not saying he wants to do that. I have no idea. Obviously, he wants to be in the NHL first, but I don't know why. That's something that I've thought all along. And I look at the Oilers. We know injuries are going to occur. When you're carrying a 21-man roster, you're 1 injury away from them calling somebody up. It's just how it goes. So who's here on opening night? Just like we saw last year, think about what happened with Clean Costin and Matthias Janmark and Vinny Desharnais. And those are guys who were all playing in the playoffs. They were in the minors to start the season, right? So you never know. And the Oilers were a good team. And that happened. So I don't get too wrapped up in who necessarily isn't going to be there on opening night, but it is intriguing to me to think of who might be that 4th line center. And, if even the Oilers consider bringing in another body just because, hey, if it's a league minimum contract, if your owner's willing to have another guy like that, and if he goes down the minors, and pay him there, that's fine. Or maybe you bring in someone else on a PTO, but I don't know, man. I won't be surprised. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I won't be surprised if we see a potential other forward sign between now and the start. Although maybe not. They got the captain skates. They'd probably want to get it done. Like if I'm a player and I'm thinking, hey, if Edmonton's talking to me, I'm like, get me in there now, right? You got so many players. Like the Oilers had 18 forwards on the ice today, 12 defensemen, 2 goalies. And Lavoie wasn't there because he was in Washington for the rookie orientation. Yeah. And then Kane and Nurse also weren't on the ice. So you think about how many guys they have here. They have young Matt, not Matt Savoy, but his older brother was here today. They've got Gleason, some other young defensemen in town. And I just think it's good for those guys. Like I don't expect them to make the team, but they're getting that opportunity. The only negative today was James Hamblin crashed hard, like really hard into the end boards, was down for a few minutes. He looks like he stepped on a stick and he went into the boards awkwardly. And that's obviously the risk, even in a scrimmage. Like, the pace isn't game pace, but it's still pretty quick. And that was an unfortunate one. And so it had me thinking, like a James Hamlin, a Malone. Like, do you think those guys are going to see any action in Edmonton at all this year?
You know what? I don't see it. I think that largely unlike last season when the team changed over the course, by the halfway mark of the season, it wasn't the same team that started the season. It wasn't even close. I mean, there were so many changes. I think what you see to start this season might be a lot closer to what you get. And still on this topic, and back to Sam for a second, maybe this is a goofy thought, and I don't even know how it works when it comes to the cap, to be honest. Could Sam Gagner start this season as a player and finish it in player development? Or is that something that comes after this season? Because we've heard talk that he wants to get into that, and this is, I think, where he would want to be. So I don't know if that's a goofy idea, but I wonder if it's a possibility at some point.
Well, I guess how it would work that wouldn't impact your cap is if he signed a contract. Then he'd have to retire. They'd have to mutually agree to rip up the contract, right? And then I guess he could go into player development if he so choose. But having spoke to Sam, he feels he wants to play still, right? So, and so that I think would be his first goal. And you know, I never asked him because I never want to put in a player's head, like, would you start in the American League? Like, I don't know. I don't want to ask a player that right away. Like, hey, you know what? We'll wait and see how camp unfolds. But something tells me I think he might be willing to do that for sure. Bronte, we got lots of texts coming in. Have you replaced the Biscayne?
You're such an ass.
Well, hey, Norman at Combine and Pete and Frank all want to know.
Unfortunately, the flamed Biscayne without the working gas gauge went down the road several years ago. I'm driving more adult cars now. I've sort of left a little bit of my adolescence as far as car selection goes behind, but thanks for reminding me of that. It was a wonderful day sitting on White Mud Drive when I was supposed to be at the studio and hearing people phone in saying, "Hey, I just saw Brownlee on the side of the road." That was awesome.
Oh, that lemon, the Biscayne, and you're just seething. It was the greatest. It was so well. The great part was so many people recognized the Biscayne. Right, that was good. Or they recognize the Bison Head, one of the two. I'm not sure which one. It's probably both. So awesome, Rosa. We'll chat with you on Monday. Have a good weekend.
Okay, Greg. See you later. Thanks, man.
There you go. That's Robin Brownlee, aka Ruben Bronte. That's still like Bronte. You know how many people walk up to him and call him Bronte all the time now? It's fantastic. There's quite a few people, and he gets a real ride out of it. It'd be like people that don't even know, hey, Bronte. Because think about it, like. Everybody most people have a nickname amongst somebody in their group, right? Ruben Bronte is such a great nickname when you know the backstory, and then you just keep it because it's awesome. Like, hey, there's Bronte. It's not a bad nickname. Not a bad nickname at all. When we return, the NFL season has begun. And you know what? We're going to end the show with the con man, Connor Halley, because we're going to go with our fantasy report next, and lots of stuff to talk about tonight, because there are some interesting plays to discuss there and more on the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca, live in the eWell studio.
McCafe now has cold brew beverages and
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Now we got some tunes, little chair dancing. I like it. Oh, man. Can't wait till Cons gets his full library of songs going. Oof. The only problem is people will see my dance moves online. I'm not sure that's, I might have to black those out. So, right. Oh, just shuffle in, right? Like that little, isn't that the meme they use on Oilers Nation about the Gretzky shuffle all the time after a win? I could shuffle in like that. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm a shuffler, though. So we'll see. Let's get to the fantasy report brought to you by Next Gen Transportation, heavy haul transport provider, 100% locally owned and operated. And I'll tell you, all right, you know what? You know how badly the McEwen brothers at Next Gen missed sports talk radio? Those guys were having 3 leg days a week. They used to do like 3 a year. They were up to 3 a week just because they needed to feel the pain, to kind of mask the pain of no sports. But now that it's back, it's all back to bench and shoulders for the old McEwens at nextgentransportation.com. As Connor Halley, our fantasy expert, of course, hey, he's got the fantasy show. If you haven't listened to the Fantasy Frenzy, you should. Monday to Friday right here on Sports 1440 at 11 a.m. until noon. Cons and Brandon Douglas. And you know what? Cons has been an awesome first 3 days. The feedback we've had, I was very confident you guys are going to kill that show, but man, people are absolutely loving it. So kudos to you guys and what you've done already, and I look forward to seeing what's going to continue next. So I have to ask you about tonight. Of course, NFL kicks off, and who isn't excited about it? Many people love it. So it's official. Kelsey is out, not a shock. So you get one guy. Who's the one KC receiver or running back who's going to go off tonight?
Yeah, I mean, and the thing with the Kansas City Chiefs, you have Patrick Mahomes, right? So one of their receivers will go off, and they've got so many dynamic weapons that, in my opinion, it could be a screen pass that they could turn into a 50-yard touchdown. Kadarius Toney, you've got Sky Moore, the second-year player. You have MVS, Pacheco. It could be Jerick McKinnon. I mean, they've just got so many options. I'm going to lead towards Kadarius Toney, and it might be a little bit risky because he's had those injury problems throughout camp, but I just think he's such a dangerous player, and you can get the ball into his hands in a bunch of different ways. And Andy Reid is just so creative and clever and trusts his players. So I think Kadarius Toney would be a guy you can look at tonight that could have a big game, whether it's in the passing game, whether it's, the quick screens, the end arounds, plays like that. I think he's going to be a way that he can get deep into that secondary. And I know the Lions defense, they went out, they invested there, but he just takes, one play and he could bust out a big touchdown. So for me, I'm going Kadarius Toney. I think he's going to have an elevated role in this offense for the Chiefs tonight.
Well, I'm basing my comment selfishly solely on my fantasy team. Now I have Pacheco and Sky Moore.
Yeah.
Right. Neither one was necessarily going to be a starter for me, just some bench strength. And it's game 1. It's week 1. And I'm putting in Sky Moore. I'm putting him in as my flex position because I think somebody's got to go off, and I'm going to go with him. You know what? He'll probably end up with 2 catches for 28 yards. But I'm going Sky Moore. If anybody else out there is with me, let's go Team Sky Moore. I like it. Which leads me to the other side. Now, I've been reading, a lot of people think the Detroit Lions might have one of the best, if not the best, offensive lines in the NFL. So a very hard position to debate and really dissect until you get to see them in regular season action. Their starting 5 has been good for a long time. The problem is, Cons, they've never played together. They've never actually had all 5 on the field at once because somebody's been hurt the last few years all the time. But they are there tonight. And so does that mean Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have a big game for them, especially when you consider that KC doesn't have Clark and their D-line maybe is a little susceptible?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy that adds value out of the backfield as a receiver. And so David Montgomery might be the guy that kind of benefits in the run game. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get his opportunities. So the run game there might be good. If you have one of those 2 players, it can be a risk, right? Because they're going to split reps in the backfield. So it might not be the consistent thing. I don't know if David Montgomery is going to get the red zone carries or if they might lean towards Jahmyr Gibbs. I think that's a bit of a risky start, but I still like Gibbs. I mean, I think he's a guy who's got ridiculous talent. He was taken in the first round. I know that was a surprise to people. Declan Kruger and I did our mock drafts when we did our show, and I still had Jahmyr Gibbs as a first-round talent, but I had him later on in the first round. So I think, you drafted him for a reason. You're going to get him involved early. You talked about that offensive line. That's another position that they have invested heavily in. Penei Sewell, Frank Ragnow, the center, and Taylor Decker. I mean, they've got some really nice pieces there. So obviously, when you invest in the big guys up front, you want to run the ball. Dan Campbell, no exception to that. He's going to want to run the ball, and especially against Kansas City on the road, try to munch that clock and make sure Patty Mahomes spends a lot of time on the sidelines. So I personally would lean Jahmyr Gibbs in this one, and I think he could have a big game.
I'm hoping so. Let's see how it goes. Now, a few other ones. Jared Goff. That's my question. Is Jared Goff going to be a reliable fantasy quarterback this season?
I think so. And honestly, we mentioned that on Fantasy Frenzy, and we had Marcus Grant on, and he thought he could be, maybe not that tier 1, but if you're in a bye week and you need someone to step in there, Jared Goff could be that guy. And at first, it sounds kind of funny because we remember him in LA, and it did not look good at the end of his tenure there. He goes to Detroit, and he started off, he was okay. He had 2 4-touchdown games in the first 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
Like, he was putting up points, but then down the stretch, ball control was unbelievable. He threw 1 interception in the last 11 games.
Mm-hmm.
He had three touchdown games in the final 6 there. So I think, you look into that offense, Jahmyr Gibbs out of the backfield, that's going to be big. Amon-Ra St. Brown, big time player right there. When they get Jameson Williams back from suspension, he can contribute. Marvin Jones, and one of the guys I really do like who might be a little bit of a sleeper, Sam Laporta, a rookie tight end they drafted. I think he could be a guy that could come in and contribute in the passing game. So I like Jared Goff. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Mahomes or, Jalen Hurts. But I think in a pinch, if you need him or you're in a real big league and you need a depth quarterback, I think Jared Goff would be more than able to come in there and help you win some games.
All right. Any risky starts for week 1? Not just for tonight, but week 1. Who are your risky starts?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you do that, you have to look into the matchups and who it might be. For me, selfishly, I always like talking about the Chargers defense because I like to hype them up and think they might be good. Individually, yeah, you don't want to do that against the Miami Dolphins this week, right? Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, obviously going to make it tough. They're going to stretch the field, and it's going to be tough. Other than that, though, I mean, I've seen some people talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers run game. They've got Najee, and I don't think he's going to be a good start against that San Francisco 49ers defense. Nick Bosa is there. We'll see how much he gets into it. Obviously, you might want to take some shots there and get him into the game. It's going to be on account, though, if he plays at all. But that Niners defense to me is so stout. And then to me, like I said, just more of those individual matchups. And, look who the opposition is. If you have, let's say, Stephon Diggs, Monday Night Football going up against the New York Jets, well, Sauce Gardner is going to be all over him. So Stephon Diggs, that might be a tough one to try to get a big game out of him. So that's what I look at, just kind of those individual matchups. Who is going to be the big player for the Raiders? They've got the Denver Broncos. That's Patrick Surtain. And Devontae Adams, he's a heck of a player. I know he's had some success against Surtain in the past, but, Surtain's another year in the game. He's a little bit wiser, a little bit quicker now. That's going to be a matchup that I think is going to be very interesting as well.
Well, I can't wait for NFL season. I love it. I love the CFL and the NFL. I don't see any reason why I have to choose. I feel no reason to speak negatively about one league. They're different. They're both exciting for different reasons, and I love it. I'm looking forward to it. So we'll see. We got. Hey guys, do not put Tony in flex position. I'm telling you, not going to happen. Put him as the wide receiver spot. Well, what's the difference? If he's your flex, that means maybe you have 2 better wide receivers, right? It all depends. If you're like, to me, it doesn't matter if I have a running back or receiver at flex or at their own position. If I feel that my 3rd best receiver is better than my 3rd best running back, well, then that's what I'm doing. Or in the off chance, maybe my 2nd tight end is better than my 3rd running back or receiver for that week. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm playing. Right? No problem with that at all. So, Tony, it's going to be interesting to see how he plays this year. The guy's got a lot of talent. There's no question about it. But let's go Sky Moore. Let's go Sky Moore. Hey, unreal show today. What a lineup we had. If you missed any of it, all of the shows, of course, you can rewatch the show on YouTube. How about that? You can check that out at Oilers Nation or rewind on the YouTube. So maybe you can't watch during the day. If you want to check it out at night, feel free. Also, it's always where you get all your podcasts. Connor has it all downloaded there. Our individual interviews are up once again at jasongregor.com. We had Noah Gregor, proud uncle here. He's, of course, with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He joined us in the first hour. Some interesting insight just into how as a young player you handle not being qualified and, kind of the mental challenges more than anything else. He also had a really good description of what he's been working on this summer. And he's always been an excellent skater. Like anybody who watched the game can tell he can fly in a straight line. He wanted to improve his lateral movement and little things about being on the front half of your blade instead of leaning back when you come on a turns, little things like that. Terry Ryan, our Thursday co-host, was on for 2 hours. TR's rant about captains, unbelievable. You'll see that later. Declan's putting that online. It was funny. Henry Burris, we talked about the quarterback position. Hailey Salvian was with us discussing the brand new women's professional hockey league. They got all their big 3 contracts for every team except New York. And Hailey outlined which 3 players she thinks New York is going to announce as their free agents. And then the draft, really exciting for the first year. The draft can be rookies, but also established vets because each team only has 3 players. So they'll have a draft, and it's going to be a snake draft, goes from 1 to 6, then 6 back down. Nice. We had Rear Admiral from Spittin Chiclets on the show, kind of giving you some insight if you've ever wanted to start a podcast, because when they started theirs, they didn't think it would ever be what it's become. Spec and Bronte as well. So if you missed anything, go there. Thank you so much for making us part of your daily routine here on Sports 1440. It's been a great first 3 days. I can't wait to see tomorrow. We got some new co-hosts we'll unveil on tomorrow's show in the morning. Eddie Steele is going to be fired up with Kevin Carrier, so check that out. Steele's coming in with a lot of passion. That's going to be awesome. So have yourselves a wonderful night. On behalf of Connor Halley, Declan Kruger, I'm Jason Gregor. Let's get to a Sports 1440 update brought to you by Jiffy Lube. Stop in for a full synthetic Pennzoil Platinum oil change today, and you get a $20 digital gift card for over 30 local merchants. Get to pick which one you like. Book your appointment today at jiffylubeservice.ca. Enjoy the kickoff to NFL. Good night.